Hello, everyone. 'Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight, as always, is Austin, the Day Ghost. Hi,
What's
Austin.
up?
And we also are joined by a special guest, Robert Wild, who is a longtime Geekflution viewer. He and I have been chatting quite a bit the last few months, and he and I did I almost said phone conversation. I guess we did a Discord thing a couple months back. We watched Batman Forever together, and that was a lot of fun, and I've been meaning to have him on the channel for something for a while, and he reached out last week and said, hey, I like Army of Darkness a lot. Maybe this is the video. So I said, sure, let's do that. So, giant fan of the Evil Dead series. He's here to talk to us about that. And welcome back to The Request. A little bit later, we're going to transform the stream into a how we felt about Austin. I figured this would be smarter than having to like shut down the stream and start another stream.
Yeah. No, the stream changes shape, so it works.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you know, there's different kinds of streaming. Streaming can come from within and without. Anyway, well, we'll get to all of that a little bit later. I don't know how long we're going to talk about Halloween Ends. I don't really want to spend too long on that, because not to give away too much about how I feel about that, but there was a part of me that didn't even want to dignify it with a review. So we are going to do it, but it might be a little shorter than normal, although there's three of us, and you guys know every time I say that, we end up doing a 2-hour stream. We're going to start with Army of Darkness, which was requested years ago on the Geeks United Club, and I was looking back through my notes. I swear to God, this was a request. I cannot find the name of the person that requested it. I looked for 15 minutes today, could not find it. So I'll go back later on in the description and credit that person when I find it. I'm not sure who it was. Robert, it wasn't you, was it?
No, that was not me.
Okay.
Well, you have one guy that's just named Ash Williams, that's like a viewer, so maybe it was that guy.
Maybe it was that guy. I don't know. But anyway, Hayden Spring there in the comments says, Halloween Ends sure was a movie. Yeah. Austin might even fight you on that. I don't know. I guess we'll see when we get there. Anyway, it's a mystery about how we feel about Halloween Ends. Let's go ahead and jump into Army of Darkness. The reason I decided to go ahead and finally review this here is because last week we had a more recent request for Evil Dead 2, which I saw for the very first time, and I had seen Army of Darkness in high school. It's been almost 20 years now since I saw that movie, but had never seen any of the other movies in the franchise, and so that was all I had, and all I had to go on. And so Evil Dead 2 was a real experience for me, and kind of a rude awakening. Like, oh, that's what this movie is like. Okay, I had to watch it twice before I appreciated it, and then going back to Army of Darkness was weird going the other way now, where I'm like, and I have this kind of like clouded opinion of what this maybe ought to have been, or how it could have been cooler, because I ended up, especially on that second viewing, liking Evil Dead 2 a lot more than I expected that I would, and I just don't think that this has, somewhat intentionally, but like it doesn't have the edge of that movie, and the whole time I kept imagining more of what maybe it ought to have been. But it was fun, I enjoyed it, it had its moments, but it felt almost like Sam Raimi teamed up with Mel Brooks to make an Army of Darkness sequel. That's what watching that was like for me. But we'll go ahead and go to you guys, big Army of Darkness Evil Dead fans, and I guess we'll start with Robert Wild. First of all, Robert, are you one of the odd outliers where Army of Darkness is your favorite, or are you like everyone else I've talked to? Evil Dead 2 is kind of where it's at.
I go back and forth. I saw Evil Dead 2 first when I was like in high school, loved it. Saw Army of Darkness shortly after. I wasn't super into horror movies yet at that time. Like this was not my genre at all growing up, even though I totally love them now. So I go back and forth. When I was younger, Army of Darkness was definitely more my thing. Like, I love comedy. It's one of my favorite comedies, and it's an adventure movie, and Bruce Campbell, I think, is hilarious. So I do think Evil Dead 2 is better, and maybe maybe the greatest movie ever made. I don't know. It's fantastic. And Army of Darkness, I just love. So I go back and forth in terms of which one I prefer, but I love both equally.
And Austin, I assume you're in the same boat there.
Yeah, so last time I said, I watched the first movie and I thought it was the greatest movie ever. And then I watched the second one, and I was like, oh, it's even better than the first one. And then I watched the third one and went, oh. It's grown on me a lot more. I had a rough first viewing when I watched this initially, where it was like, oh, it kind of moves away from everything I liked in the first two. But at this point, like, it's still, I think, the weakest of the trilogy for me. But I do really like it, and like I said, like it's the Bruce Campbell like comedy movie. Like he's so perfect, and he does a great job, and it's really just kind of like showcasing his comedic chops. Really, like that's kind of the movie.
Austin, you know how we had that conversation a week or two ago about what decade is the weakest for movies, and you argued the 90s real hard for me,
Yeah.
or to me. Watching this, I was like, this is another one of those franchises where you've got a movie made in the 80s, a movie made in the 90s, and the 90s movie is a consummate 90s movie. In some ways anyway, where Evil Dead 2 is still has very much that independent spirit and feels like it kind of doesn't care who's watching it. I wouldn't call it too self-absorbed or anything, but it just hopes that there are people out there like Sam Raimi that like this kind of thing. And Army of Darkness feels like weirdly a studio film, as much as like Sam Raimi can still get his crazy weird like comedic horror stuff in there. Like there's still obviously some independent elements to it, but like we know that Sam Raimi, because I did 5 minutes of cursory research. We know that Sam Raimi was trying to make it as much of a PG-13 movie as possible because that's what the studio wanted, and then they still ended up with an R, apparently, and it's a real weak R. Like I don't know how it got slapped with that.
No, it's a movie I always think of as PG-13, and then watch it and go, oh, it's R.
Do you
Oh,
want
there's
to
like
know?
nudity in the background in one shot.
Do you want to know why it was
that
rated
must be
R?
blink and you miss it because I missed that. But I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Do you want to know why it was rated R?
It's the blood that shoots out of the
No,
I don't know thing.
no,
Rancor pit.
because the
I
ratings
also
board.
called it the Rancor Pit. And then I had to explain that to Jason, my son who was watching with me, and he apparently did not remember that that's what that was called. Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress.
Not a bad comparison, but because the ratings board hated them so much for releasing Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 unrated, those aren't R-rated movies. Those movies were released unrated. That when they submitted Army of
I forgot
Darkness,
about that.
they gave them an NC-17 for Army of Darkness. They had to cut it down to get to an R. So if you folks out there think that the ratings board is impartial and fair and has a clear set of guidelines,
There's not one person on the planet that thinks that.
incorrect.
No one thinks that. There's no fans of the ratings board.
Just go look at the Friday the 13th series.
So you're saying that they retroactively penalized this movie
Yes.
because of those films?
Yeah, Sam Raimi from the beginning wanted this to be PG-13. This wasn't the studio saying, hey, can you make this PG-13 to appeal to kids? Or like, no, from the beginning, Sam Raimi said to him, the first Evil Dead is a horror movie. The second one is a comedy. I'd call it a horror comedy, but whatever. And the third film is an adventure movie, with Ray Harryhausen and the stuff he was looking at. So from the beginning, he was going for more of a PG-13 tone, but they still ended up with an R.
Yeah, if you're right, then some of the information I found was incorrect because I read some things that claimed that some of it was the studio asking him to try to make it PG-13 from the beginning, but it wasn't like he was trying to cut down an R-rated film. Like when he started,
Right.
he was okay with the PG-13 thing, but I think part of it did have to do with his relationship with the studio, maybe.
Mhm.
No, that is one thing that I really like about it is that all three movies are very different, just like as a trilogy.
Yeah, it's just a strange trilogy when the second movie is just a remake of the first one.
Well,
But
and
they're
this
done
one
so
starts
differently.
like a remake
Yeah.
of the first two. They don't binge well.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine they do. I guess the really the only major change that's made from Evil Dead 2 into Army of Darkness is just the way he is treated by the soldiers when he first shows up in 1300.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, and,
besides that, everything else kind of matches.
I mean, Linda's played by a different actress in the flashback. Like the opening credits, it's like a mix of archival footage from Evil Dead 2 and reshot stuff. Like in the opening of Army of Darkness when he cuts off his hand with a chainsaw, that's a reshoot because the blood doesn't splatter on his
Sure,
face.
but I just
like
mean
it did in Evil
continuity
Dead 2.
stuff that informs the story. Like,
Yeah,
the,
sure.
like this, the actual story that's being told. There's not that much that's changed in the background, like retconning.
Mhm.
Quite a bit is done with Evil Dead 2. There's not, as big of a cast, and they're like full on reshooting things. It's not just flashbacks. But I also, maybe the other thing is the car, because I don't think the car went through at the end of Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
It does.
Did it? Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, because that's the first thing you see is they drop the car and it hits at the end.
Why does that guy have science books in his car?
why does he have bullets? How did the shotgun shells end up in there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
why
that's
does he
the
need
big
them? Because
thing.
he's obviously shooting that gun way too many times for how many bullets could have been in it in the first place anyway. Why even bother to reload? Like, I kind of thought we had a conceit from the beginning of just unlimited bullets. Like, I didn't need him to reload that gun.
Well, that's my favorite thing is that in 2, they're so just like particular about making sure that they never mess up the continuity on how many bullets he has in his gun. And then in Army of Darkness, it's like, he's got like a shotgun that can handle 2 bullets, and he's shooting it like 15 times at the end. It's awesome.
No, I love the absurdity of that. It's great. Hey, Austin, real quick,
It's so
for folks
cartoony.
that haven't seen this in a while, why don't you give us a real brief synopsis?
Okay, Army of Darkness is Ash. He goes back in time, like the end of Evil Dead 2, and the knights they say like, "Hey, go to this thing, go do this quest, go get the Necronomicon," and then hijinks ensue. Little ashes come out of him, and then grow into a big one, and then he becomes like an undead Ash that
That
rules
whole
the
thing
Army of
was
Darkness.
too ambitious for this project, right? Like the little ashes. There's a lot of charm to that. It's fun. It doesn't hold up.
Yeah, some of that like I don't know, green screen work isn't great, but that sequence is really fun. Like I said, it's just Bruce Campbell being goofy for an hour and a half, so it's like that's just him fighting other Bruce Campbells, and it's really silly. Um,
I guess that's a
you know,
natural escalation of the slapstick, right?
exactly, yeah. No, it's the type of movie where he eats a little Bruce Campbell, and then he has to drink boiling water to kill it. And this movie, I also don't think is hiding the fact that it's just him because it opens with like Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness.
That's a more fun title than just Army of Darkness. I prefer Bruce Campbell versus Army of Darkness. If
I
you're not
saw
gonna
it
do
just called
visual
Medieval
Medieval
Dead,
Dead.
like Austin mentioned last week. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's too good, but Army of Darkness is fine.
Army of Darkness is almost too badass of a title for this movie, though.
I mean,
That's my problem with
those
it.
skeletons are pretty badass.
They're great, and I love the Harryhausen of it, and that was the stuff that stuck with me from when I saw it when I was younger. It seems like the whole movie is just an excuse to get to that battle, almost like in a Lord of the Rings kind of way. Like you're here for this, and that doesn't disappoint. There's a lot of really fun gags.
Mhm.
With all of that, with all the skeletons and stuff, and it is kind of impressive what they were able to put on screen for like $12 million, I guess.
Mhm. I just love that scene where he's like punching the evil Ash's head over and over, and it spins around.
Yeah, Jason lost it at that.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, the Evil Dead 2, I was really concerned about showing to Jason because he's only 12 and I didn't know if he could handle it, after I saw it, and then he just thought it was the best thing ever, and he loved it. And then Army of Darkness, I didn't bother screening before I showed to Jason because I remembered it being tamer, and I knew that it was basically a PG-13 movie, and so we just watched it, and he was like, "Oh, this isn't scary at all." Like, I think he was a little bit disappointed with that, but he had a really fun time with it. His favorite thing was Ash getting up into the chainsaw, like the leap, and he had the
Yes.
same kind of kind of response that he did with the first movie. His complaint, and this I think distracted him the whole movie. Jason's big complaint was just that Ash is so stupid. He couldn't deal with it. He was like, I didn't think he was quite that dumb in the first movie. And to be fair
But he
with
gets
this,
dumber with each
if you look at it
movie.
as its own standalone thing, I think the point is that he's that much of a screw up because after all, he is having to fight himself and his own stupidity, and like that's what creates the army. So weirdly, he's destined to save the world from himself, I guess. So like all of that is fun, but Jason couldn't deal with like how stupid he was, and also just how uh, antagonistic he was to the people in 1300.
Oh, he's a lot more unlikable in this one, but he's dumber because of the brain damage. He gets hit in the head so many times.
That's what I
in
told
these
Jason.
movies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's just like full snarky Bruce Campbell in this movie. Like that's what kind of cements that as his persona.
Mhm.
You know, where he just goes around, he's just like this like jerk, snarky man, and he's amazing.
Obviously, we're spoiling everything. How do you guys feel about the one big pop culture reference that has to be a plot point with this, with Klaatu Barada Nikto?
Oh, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I think it's like a silly little reference. It doesn't bother me.
That was
It's
the
more of an
thing.
inside joke.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so in the cultural zeitgeist that was one of the big things that made it feel so much like a Mel Brooks movie to me. Like that's what Mel Brooks would do with a thing like this, right? Is he'd take something that everybody's familiar with and he'd throw it in, early history in medieval times or something.
well, it works out because you get like the Klaatu, Grata.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I've seen some people say that this movie is what kind of brought that line back into the pop culture zeitgeist. I don't know if that's true. I've never done a poll, but there could be a lot of people that know that line from this movie and not Day the Earth Stood Still. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I mean, that movie
possible,
was
but I
pretty
mean,
old
I
by
know
this
it because
point.
I know The Day the Earth Stood Still, and of course, that's still got a big following because it's one of the best science fiction films ever made.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not really sure.
It is just, I'm just complaining a little bit that it's kind of odd that that's the only thing like that. I almost needed like 3 or 4 more of those.
What I've always thought is weird is they like redo the groovy shot again, and it's like almost the exact same shot. Where, like they zoom in, and it's not anywhere near as good as the 1 and 2.
I still like that. That montage is so good. That's what's weird about Ash in this movie. He's an idiot, but he also knows how to build a robot hand.
Yeah, he
That's
can
really
build a robot
advanced.
hand and like train all the people to fight the army of darkness.
And the way he
at the
soups
end.
up his car.
Yeah,
Yeah, that montage is so good, and it's like you see the Sam Raimi montage like fully formed in this movie, where it's clear when you watch Edgar Wright movies like Shaun of the Dead how much the Evil Dead movies inspired him. And this movie, besides some stuff in Evil Dead 2, I think that's most apparent, which is those quick zoom ins and the loud noises between cuts. Like it's so Edgar Wright what he would do in some of his movies.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I had something else I was gonna say, but now my mind's blank.
We were talking about the obvious absurdity with this. I do appreciate the excuses for why he is good at the things he is, even though he's an idiot, Robert. Where it's like, oh well, he works at a hardware store, so he can do all this stuff. It doesn't make any sense, but it's wonderful. Like,
Well, yeah,
he's a
and the
perfect
store
marksman
end
because he
is
sells guns.
great. Well, the musical's got a good joke about that, where they do that ending scene where they're in the store, and they do like the final song where he's like singing to like all the people that he saved from the Deadite at the end, and there's like a line about how he can kill Deadites because he's the employee while they're just the customers.
That's pretty good. Now that I've seen both of these, I'll go back at some point and watch the original just for the sake of completion. But now that I've seen both of these, I'll probably listen to the musical because I'm more curious about that. And Austin, I'm honestly, I never thought I'd get to this place. I'm now maybe curious enough to finally watch the TV show. I think I
Yes.
So
might
good.
finally do it because I saw the pilot and I appreciated a lot of things about it. I thought the writing was particularly clever. I was getting a lot of like Ben Edlund Tick vibes from it, but it's just not my thing. It was a little bit too vulgar and violent for my taste, and now that I've been through Evil Dead 2, I think I might be desensitized enough
Well, and that
that
is
I can
definitely a
appreciate
thing.
that show.
The show is more vulgar than the movies, I think.
Yeah, that was the sense I was getting from it. I don't mean that I was joking when I said that. I don't mean that Evil Dead 2 by itself would be enough to desensitize myself to modern horror sensibilities. But like, I've seen enough of that kind of stuff that I can deal with it. I just don't. I just didn't want to. And now that now that I appreciate Evil Dead 2, I think I might. I'm just too curious. I think I might finally look at it.
Oh, pick up the game. I think the game's cross-platform. We can blast that.
Is that multiplayer?
Yeah, it's only
Yes.
multiplayer. Well,
Oh, it's
there are
only
like
okay.
single player missions, but
Interesting. Yeah, all I know about that game is what you've told me. I think it's
yeah,
really
it's
funny that you can play as Deadites.
yeah. Well, you can also have a team of just Ashes because they have Ash from every single movie and the show. So you can have a team of 4 Ashes if you
Yeah, it's
want.
awesome.
I never think of this as a big sprawling franchise, but at this point, it's got kind of that Power Rangers thing where it's permeated a lot of different media, right? Because there's a decent amount of comic stuff now, and I'm also probably finally going to take a look at the Marvel Zombie stuff
Well, and it's with the exception of the
because I
2000s,
love
it's
Marvel Zombies, but I didn't know Army of Dark or I didn't know Evil Dead at all, and so I never read that crossover. But now I will.
no for sure. But with the exception of the 2000s, it's had like a big thing every decade because you got like the first 2 movies in the 80s, 3 in the 90s, the remake in the show in the 2010s, and the new movie next year.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite horror franchise as a whole because I like pretty much everything. I even like the remake.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I'd say
aside,
it's probably mine too.
yeah, aside from the remake, I will uh, agree to an extent with what Captain Logan was saying earlier, in that aside from the remake, I think Army of Darkness is the most divisive with the fans. Like, I know there are a number of fans who love Evil Dead 2 that didn't really care for this one, and it
Mhm.
didn't do that great at the box office initially.
Yeah, it's more of a cult classic, but I think it's just because it shifts so hard
Mhm.
that initially people were maybe off put by it.
I
I don't know.
resist calling.
Apparently, horror franchises like to shift like really awkwardly in their third movie. I don't know what that's about, but
Yeah, I resist calling it a cult classic just because it is so popular and there's been so much merchandise and stuff like that. It's like there's this in between with like classics like Alien or The Exorcist or whatever, and then I don't know. I wouldn't put this in the same league of like Sleepaway Camp. Like that's a cult classic where you have to be really into horror movies to know what
no,
that is.
that's true.
So
No, it's
this
in
is
that
somewhere in
place of like
between.
the thing where the thing bombed, but like everybody likes it now.
Yeah, The Thing's just a classic. I feel weird
Yeah.
calling that a cult classic. Like everyone loves it.
Well,
Yeah.
and don't you also think that the more decades we go past a thing, it's possible for the status to change? So I think at one time you could have called Army of Darkness a cult classic, perhaps.
Oh,
And
definitely.
now this is a franchise has become too mainstream to say that, right? Like
Mhm.
at one time, TV wise, you could have considered Firefly a cult classic. And now that's one of the most mainstream science fiction things you can think of, just because of how popular it got after its cancellation. And obviously the history of this is different from that, but that was just the first thing that came to mind. Like I think you go back to say 99, 2000, this is a cult classic. But at the point where you've got the remake, and then a lot of big kind of geeky franchises get more mainstream, and it's just this kind of underground stuff in general starts to get more popular with people. I think that this kind of shifted status.
Well, and with the remake, we were gonna get Army of Darkness 2 after that, and then it just kind of fell through. They did the show instead.
Oh, before the show, they had this weird Sony premature plan where we were going to get a sequel to the remake and a Army of Darkness sequel, and then another
And then
movie
they were
that
gonna
crossed them
combine.
over,
Yeah.
which I really wanted, but I'm glad we got the show because the show's amazing.
hmm No, I think we ended up with like the better reality. And it also just would have been
I
weird
hate
in
it when
general.
companies jump the gun like that. Don't wait to see box office receipts and how things are going to go. But I also think if you're gonna do if you're gonna start planning all that madness, don't tell anybody about it.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. The remake also has like one of the worst cameos I've ever seen, where
Yeah,
the
that was
end credit
disappointing.
scene is Ash saying "groovy," but it's like clearly shot in a studio office where it's just like everything's been blacked out, and you just have like a light on the side of his face. It's very weird.
Well, what I like about the remake is it's one of those reimagining things where it's like, well, this could be a sequel to the original, kind of. The continuity in the original trilogy is such a mess that why not? Like, it's not
hmm
completely just a remake of the first movie.
No, that's
Yeah,
a
when they put
tradition at
Ash's
this
car
point.
there, which
It-
doesn't make
yeah.
sense, but
That's the tradition of this
only
franchise.
if it's a sequel to
Every
the first one.
iteration, you should wonder if it counts.
that's the one thing the remake's missing. The remake has like a really bad opening, and then it's good after that.
Mhm.
The opening should have been a recap of the first three.
That would have been amazing.
So is the remake without Bruce Campbell entirely?
Yeah,
Right.
I haven't seen it,
He-
but I assumed that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just that after credit scene where you see his face and he says "groovy."
Which at the time was so disappointing because this was before the show, so this is before we like really saw him back as that character. So it was like, oh, that's it, man.
It just shot in some office.
Was he reacting to anything in particular, or did he just say the line?
No, he's just
He
in
said
like
it
a
to the
black
audience.
and white, and then he just says it to the audience,
Oh.
and then it cuts to black.
That's awkward, isn't it?
At least
Don't
it's
you want
after
context
the credits
for your
and not
after-credit
the last scene of
scenes?
the movie.
If you have to have
Yeah.
those? Sorry, what were you saying, Robert?
No, at least it's after the credits and not like the last shot of the movie, where the movie ends and then you get that, and it's like, what?
Yeah, no, that is true.
So it could have been worse.
Thomas Lowe wants to know why Jason didn't come on for this video. He says he has some good opinions on the movie. It's after 10 and it's a school night. That's the answer.
Yep.
That's it. I wanted him here last week because I was surprised by his reaction to Evil Dead 2, but alas, it took me too long, and I guess I didn't remember this from the original. It took me too long to realize that the undead general of the army was in fact the that version of Ash. Like, it took me a second. I couldn't tell right away, and Jason
It's
was
Bruce
like,
Campbell.
oh, it's Ash, and like, because when he has, and that's neat, when he has that line, that repeated line from earlier where he says like,
Give me
lay
some
some
sugar,
sugar on me, I was
baby.
like, wait, why? Like, that's convenient. Why would he say that? And Jason's like, cause it's Ash, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah, he's evil Ash.
I didn't realize that, and then I understood what the movie was about.
That was when I learned it was about the Army of Darkness. No, Bruce Campbell's also great as evil Ash.
No, he is. It's really fun. I almost wish he got more screen time as Evil Ash, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I want to. This is he has called this the most difficult shoot he's ever done,
Oh wow.
and I can see why, because this was like 100 days, 7 days a week of night shoots, something like it was a miserable shoot for everyone. But he had to play Ash, he had to play Evil Ash, he had to do the stunts, he had to do the action scenes, he had to do flips and beat himself up. I was gonna ask you guys, like, what do you think is the better Bruce Campbell performance, Evil Dead 2 or this movie? Because I love both.
It's hard to say because they're so different. There's more moments that I think are like kind of peak level for me in 2, but also at the same time it's like, oh, but he like carries 3. Like,
Yeah.
he's so good. There's so many great moments and quotes too in 3.
Yes.
While a lot of what I love about him in 2 is just him by himself, like being crazy, and there's not like a lot of lines in that period of the movie.
Yeah, so much of 2 is just Sam Raimi beating him up and him screaming. Like, it's kind of a one-man show for most of
Yeah.
it. Here, you get a lot more interactions with other characters, like, to bounce off of with dialogue, and it's really funny. Like, I love the
Yeah.
quotes in this movie.
No, and you have my second favorite one-off F-bomb in this movie.
Jason's too.
It's
That's
so
very
good.
He loved
That
it.
gave it an NC-17. That was probably their reason.
Yeah,
If
and you
have
get one with
F-bomb, it's
PG-13.
NC-17.
And I think Evil Dead 2 actually had 2, did it not?
I don't. Evil Dead 2's.
I can't remember. 'Cause
It's totally an R, but it was released
Yeah.
unrated.
Yeah.
yeah, I only count F-bombs when it's like PG-13. Or I know this is R, but like it's basically PG.
Well, because I was thinking about that last week when we were talking about that, and there's a pretty fun F-bomb there, and we were talking about it as like the singular one, but I think there's like another more like throwaway one somewhere that maybe the Hit guy has or something. I can't remember now.
Mhm.
And I also could be conflating it with some other rated R horror thing I've had to watch the last couple weeks. I'm not sure. I've been having to watch a lot of things for camera, so I don't remember. But as far as best performance for Bruce Campbell between the two, I think he is. It's weird to say consistent because he's almost having to be directed a little bit differently in the third one because it's such a comedy, it's such a farce. The second one, he is. Almost like crazier and wilder, but it's within a more reined-in context, and so it feels like a more reined-in performance to me, weirdly. And I think I just like the tone and the context of that more. So like I would want to give it to 2, but like I'm kind of recognizing what you were talking about, Robert, the hours he's putting in and how much more complex what he's having to do and put up with is for the third one. So I think it's technically more impressive, but I think I'm enjoying and appreciating the performance more in the second one. Like this is probably too overblown to say, but it feels like you're looking at a stage play versus a big like big screen theatrical thing with the third one, because that second movie is such a one room, I can't say drama, horror film. We go outside and stuff. I realize it's not one room, but a lot of what he does makes it feel that way, particularly in the first half an hour.
Well, that's some of the best stuff in 2 is when it's just him going crazy, when it's just him before everybody else shows up.
But yeah, like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's certainly got a lot of goofy charm, but that I'm understanding the fans now why everybody loves Evil Dead 2 more, and I think I'm with you guys.
I go back and forth. Army of Darkness will always have a special place in my heart. Cap, did you recognize the actor who played the old wise man?
I did, but remind me. I'm forgetting right now in the moment because it's been a few days.
Alfred from Birds of Prey.
Yes,
your favorite
Ian
TV
Abercrombie.
Show.
That's who that was. Yep, and I noticed I didn't actually realize it in scene. I saw his name at the end, and I was like, oh, he must have been the old guy, because he's got I don't know if he's wearing a lot of makeup, but he's got a lot of facial hair. So.
Mm-hmm. And the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is in this movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ian Abercrombie was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and that would have blown my mind.
No, when Ash gets put in the pit and he fights the 2 Deadites, like the skinny lady and then the bigger one.
Yeah.
And the bigger one, that stunt guy played the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters.
That's fun.
Oh, crazy! Yeah, I want that as a crossover. Ash fighting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Heck yeah.
I think it's fun that we never see the Deadite that's chasing him into the windmill. I like that that's just a first-person... I don't think you ever see it, do you? Because then he goes into the windmill, and then he's just fighting the multiples of himself?
Well, I think that's the only part that you really get the Evil Dead, like, POV moment.
Yeah.
You don't really see what that was.
That's what's so weird about the studio wanting to market this as a standalone movie, because scenes like that almost feel like, well, here's the obligatory Evil Dead scene. We need a scene where the camera's chasing Ash. But then the studio says, we can't market this as Evil Dead 3. I don't understand it.
Ash can't be Medieval Dead.
Medieval Dead's such a better title.
Yeah, it's a really good title. And they were also... too concerned with it ending on like a dour, bleak note in changing the ending, which sucks because the original ending is great, and I honestly think I would like the movie a bit better. If
Interesting.
because it matches with Evil Dead 2 so well. Like I really love the idea that he gets sucked through a portal. Oh God, what's gonna happen? Oh, it's time travel now. That's wacky. And then third movie he goes. I mean, it's kind of odd that he sleeps for several centuries, but he goes back to the future and thinks he's going to be okay, and then now he's way too far in the future, so now we flipped it. Like, I don't know, I love that. That's a lot of fun, and it's a really good setup for a potential fourth movie, which would be, which if you made that movie, I feel like you'd almost have to take it a little bit back to what Evil Dead was in the first place, but now an epic. So you'd be kind of combining those two things. Like if you could do a 4, and I also like the idea of just imagining what a 4 would be even if you never got it. So like I still would have liked that cliffhanger ending even if we could never pay it off. If you're in this, bleak apocalyptic future and it has to be dark and scary and real R-rated again, but also it's the big scale action that we had with Army of Darkness, it'd be the best of both worlds. I would have loved that.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I think is like widely debated, which ending is better. I've always said the original ending, the bleak one that you're talking about, is a better Evil Dead ending, and the ending in this movie is a better Army of Darkness ending, where the original ending fits more into the tone of the first two movies, and the like goofy ending of this one fits more with this movie.
I like both endings. I think I prefer the theatrical version. You get one of the best lines in the movie in it with "Hail to the King, baby."
Oh, sure.
If you don't get that ending, you don't get that line.
And you get Deadite on a trampoline.
Yes. The Ash shoots 50,000 times in the air. It's
with
amazing.
A shotgun that probably has like 2 bullets.
I mean,
that he couldn't possibly have enough time to load.
No, he just picks it up like in the store, like it's just loaded in the store. Like you just buy it loaded.
The way it cuts, I thought the idea was that maybe he loaded it off camera. I wasn't sure.
Sure.
Plus, we get Ted Raimi's beautiful face in that transition.
But Austin, here's where I'll fight you a little bit. The reason I like that ending better. First of all, I think both endings do kind of the same thing you're talking about, because I think the ending in the store, especially the way it's shot, it also feels more like an Evil Dead ending to me. Like both of them are still like goofy in their way, certainly, but I don't know that one feels any more like the more campy, over the top thing that we've had with this last movie. Like I feel like
it is, it's not so much tone or anything.
Okay.
It's that the first two movies end with cliffhangers of like basically Ash is screwed.
Yeah.
The first movie ends with like the camera zooming in at his face as he screams, cut to black. Second film ends with him being sent back in time and he's stranded in the medieval ages. And then that original ending fits more into that like bleak ending where it's like, yeah, Ash just can't catch a break, while the ending in the theatrical cut is like, yeah, he won. Like that's a happy ending.
But I think giving it a real Evil Dead ending, sorry, real quick, justifies the goofiness of that last movie. Like if you can wind it back around to what it was before, it's kind of easier for me to accept the farce, I think. And also,
interesting.
And also, I think he kind of deserves to keep having his ash handed to him, because he's such a jerk, and he kind of sucks intentionally, and he's terrible to people, and he is such an idiot through that movie. Like I don't think he deserves to win. That's one of the things that makes it feel too much like a consummate 90s like family movie. Everything's okay at the end. It shouldn't be okay at the end. Look at the hero. Like
yeah. Well, and then because you mentioned,
and it was studio mandated.
Yeah. But the theatrical cut has like that great line, the "Hail to the King, baby." But I also think that the "I slept too long" is also one of Bruce Campbell's like best line deliveries of all time.
Well, I love that it takes it back to the Evil Dead 2 thing where he can't stop. Every time he reacts to something he doesn't like, he can't stop going, "No!" And he doesn't quite do that with that ending, but he's really close. It's almost there.
No, it's so perfect. He looks over, everything's destroyed, and he's like, I slept too long. It's wonderful.
Well, Cap, Bruce Campbell would agree with you. He did not like the reshoot ending, and you can tell he's kind of checked out. Like he's a little too deadpan, but he was so exhausted by that point he didn't fight it. He was just like, whatever. But him and Ted Raimi were like, yeah, we prefer the first ending. That was what we were going for. So they agree with you on that. But the original ending was going to be even more grim, and I think way to the film's detriment.
What would that have been?
I actually don't know if I know this.
Originally, it was going to be the first ending where Ash screws up and he sleeps too long. But the first version they shot, when you get that close up on his face while he's like aging and time is passing, it keeps going and he turns into a skeleton and he dies. And that was the original ending, was Ash sleeps too long and then just dies. And that's how the movie ends. That was way too grim. I'm glad they changed it.
See, the only thing you'd have to tweak for me for that to make that ending wonderful would be if somehow you could contrive a way, and it's Evil Dead, you could do anything you wanted to. If you could somehow contrive a way that he's a skeleton, but he's still conscious and sentient, like, that would have been great.
That would be funny.
Because now he's just like one of the skeletons like in the army, but he's just, undead. And also that would call back to Evil Dead 2 when he keeps jumping back and forth between being alive and undead. It'd be kind of fun if you're stuck with an undead Ash at the end. But if he's just dead, no, that's lame.
Yeah. It is funny that Sam Raimi, like, back then...
What if he's like, a skeleton and he goes, I slept too long!
Oh, that'd be awesome, then. That is funny, though, that Sam Raimi, like, really wanted the bleak ending, and the studio said, no, like, you gotta have a happy ending. And then he, like, flipped on the remake, where the director wanted a bleak ending, and he was like, no. Do a happier one.
Oh, interesting. Do you guys, I mean, I know you guys said that you were somewhat positive on that. Do you recommend I look at that?
Morbid curiosity. I like it. I like it more than Austin does. I think it's good, but it's a lot more harsh in tone and brutal.
Yeah, like, that's why I hesitated. Was because it's Evil Dead without the fun, and it's just like very graphic, and I don't think you'll like that as much. Like, I think that movie's all right, but I don't know how you'd react to it.
There's an infamous scene in the first one, and it's one of the most effective parts in that first movie, where someone gets stabbed in the ankle with a pencil, and it's really painful to watch. And the remake is like 100 versions of that over and over again. It's really brutal. The show is really funny and witty, and you'd probably like more than the remake.
Okay, well, if I ever look at that, then I'll just make it the last priority then. Because it sounds like
and I know
plenty of other things to look at.
I showed Dan the first two, and he loved those. And then he watched Army of Darkness, and he also went like, "Yeah, that was good, but I prefer the first two." And then he watched the remake and didn't really like it. So I wonder if you would have the same reaction, Cap.
Has Dan seen the show yet?
Part of me thinks you watched the first episode, but I can't remember. It's been a while.
Let's just talk about what people who are not here have looked at or not looked at.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting for the audience.
Well, the best part about showing Dan Evil Dead 1 and 2 was that he, like, cut off, like, half an hour before it ended. And it was like, oh, man, like, well, I hope he's still watching it. And then after the movie ended, he came back and he was like, sorry, my fiance called, but that movie was insane. That last half hour was nuts. I'm still watching it while I was on the phone.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I kind of really dig on Evil Dead 2 now. I mentioned this last week. If I had seen it just the one time, because I wasn't in the right mood for it, and I watched it right after doing a commentary for Zodiac, so I was nothing like in the right headspace for it. I'd have given it a red sign flip, I think. Like, I couldn't get into it. I didn't understand what was supposed to be fun about it. And then I realized I had to watch it with people. Then I had Brandon and Jason watch it with me. And, I don't mean that I'm such a sponge that I just enjoy things other people are enjoying, even if I would usually not like them. But something like triggered an appreciation in it for me where I was like, oh, this is why this is fun. Okay. And now I kind of dig it. So anyway, And then I really thought that I would probably hold to my guns and I'd be like, no, Army of Darkness is great because I loved it the first time I saw it back in high school. I guess I was very
Mhm.
impressionable because it seemed, I remember it seeming to have more of an edge to it than I did this time.
That's how much
It
you've
was really,
changed. You become desensitized. You used to think
yeah.
Army of Darkness had an edge.
Yeah. I used to not be able to get past the first 10 minutes of Blade. Like,
Yeah.
I still can't believe that someone made Cap watch Society several years ago. I think that's the movie that changed him. Like you're not the same person after you've seen that movie. I don't even know if Cap remembers it.
no, that's true. But I have definitely repressed a good deal of that.
See, I don't know if it's that movie or if it's the fact that you live
I have
in
a trigger thing when you say that word. Like even just the word, not even just in the context of the movie. Somebody says like we live in a society. I'm like, ugh. And not for the same reason that a lot of other people go. Ugh. Just because I saw the movie Society. And there's certain foods I haven't been able to eat again since seeing that movie. Now that I'm thinking, anyway, I'm sorry. What were you saying, Austin?
No, I just made the you live in a society joke. You're welcome.
We do indeed. What the most profound statement anyone's ever made. Anyway, Army of Darkness would be a green sign flip for me, but I would rather watch Evil Dead 2, and I do wish that the sensibilities were somehow a little bit closer to that, because I think even in that setting with that absurd premise, it still could have been.
No, it absolutely could have been.
Well, to your point, as much as I love this movie, if they had known they were gonna get an R, there are places where I do wish the movie had a little bit more edge, where you could have been a little bit more violent. This is the only Evil Dead thing where like none of the main characters die.
Yeah,
they're all fine, and I'm fine with that. I
was surprised by that.
Endings.
Even the girl lives. She does the same thing that Ash did in the first movie, where she goes undead and then she's fine at the end.
Yeah, for reasons.
I don't know why. We haven't even gotten into logic stuff, which I don't feel the need to do. I had lots of like how come questions at in the third act of this, and I was like, the movie doesn't care. I don't think I do either. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's just all about
fun.
It's all about fighting skeletons for 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's it. It is a full-on farce. Like it knows that it's cutting corners with its logic, and Evil Dead 2 does that to some degree. Also, it's just vaguer about it, which somehow makes it work better. And in this, there's just whole plot points where I'm like, I don't know why that guy did that. It's been a few days. I can't remember now some of that, but anyway, one of the reasons I like the original ending better is I don't like the double beat of Claudio Barada Nictu again.
Well, it shows that once again he screwed up. So I still see it as a little ambiguous because it's like if he had done it correctly, he would be back in the present and everything would be fine. But because a Deadite shows up and that he has to fight in the store, I don't see it as a completely happy ending. I get the sense that yes, there are still going to be Deadites that he will have to fight, and he's still screwed up. So
no, that's
I don't know. It still works for me.
No, my point is just I don't like that it's the same magic words to get the book as it is to go back to the future. Like that should be different things.
That should have been like another pop culture reference.
Yeah, like you have to say, "Luke, I am your father" or something, and then and somebody messes that up.
Well, that's how he messes it up because you're supposed to say, "No, I am your father."
Oh, right.
He said, "Luke, I am your father." Actually, so now he's in the.
That's a quality joke. No, that's a quality joke. It's a little obvious, a little on the nose, but that's a quality joke.
That'll go over like 83% of the audience's heads because nobody knows that that's what the line actually is.
No, that's true. I mean, I know it, and I still messed it up. Anyway, anything else you guys want to make sure that gets mentioned about that movie? Because I know you guys love that film. Before we do a real quick sign flip review of Halloween Ends.
Since we mentioned it last time, that Disney basically paid him to remake that series as a Doctor Strange movie. I'll also just throw out that Disney also paid Sam Raimi to remake this movie into a Wizard of Oz movie.
Yep.
So I'll just throw that out there. That's my last point.
How much because you've talked a lot, Austin, about just like how many Evil Dead references are in Doctor Strange 2. Is there anything specifically Army of Darkness in that
Probably, but now I'm
that you
like
noticed?
blanking on it. I mean, Doctor Strange in a lot of ways is just kind of like Sam Raimi career, the reference. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so
you also have the whole rights issues with
yeah, and
these
there's all
movies
that
after,
too.
where there's like when you look at the comics, there's a distinction between the Army of Darkness comics and the Evil Dead comics. Like those are two different things. And then with the show, they weren't allowed to directly reference Army of Darkness because they didn't have full access to it or something. So he's like an S-Mart kind of. He references going to the Middle Ages at one point, but they're not allowed to like explicitly reference Army of Darkness in that show.
Mhm. No,
So
and
it's kind of a separate thing.
they only got away with that middle age reference because of the ending of two, because like you do see him go
Mm.
there. No, and the rights issues is why we lost Ash as a playable character in Mortal Kombat. It's
Ah,
amazing that
heartbreaking.
the Evil Dead game is able to use Army of Darkness stuff.
Right? That's what I love about it. That
Mhm.
was such a treat to see.
Yeah, that we like somebody finally came and they like put it all together, because even like the big 4K set for Evil Dead, it's Evil Dead 1, 2, the show, and
Mhm.
then Army of Darkness just got a 4K release like a week ago, but it's not in that big set of the other movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of franchises with weird, awkward rights issues. This is one of the weirder ones. That you get a direct sequel to a thing that has to be its own thing. I'll go back to Firefly for a minute. Imagine the nightmare it would be if in comics or something, Serenity was its own thing and was owned by a different studio, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
nightmare.
But isn't there already like a little bit of that with that title? Like that's why they had to call it Serenity?
Maybe so, but they can still reference everything that was in that movie.
No, no, of course. But I thought there was like a thing with that because it goes from Fox to Universal.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, I know that some fans don't like that movie, so some fans would probably prefer a sequel to the show and
Maybe,
ignoring that movie.
maybe so. I disagree. I think that movie's boss, but whatever.
Yeah, it's probably Whedon's best movie, but I haven't watched it in years.
Um,
Not that that's like a high bar.
Daniverse says this movie wouldn't have existed without Darkman. I'm sure that's
That's
true.
true.
Just with the success of that. AMC Comics, I think he's talking about Ian Abercrombie from the conversation we had earlier about that. Says that he was also the second Palpatine voice in Clone Wars.
Yep. And very good. Sounded a lot like the original Emperor voice in Clone Wars. That's like the best Ian McDiarmid replacement we've ever got doing an Emperor voice. He was fantastic.
Oh, cool.
That's cool. I wonder if he did much other voice acting because that's an actor that I like a lot that is kind of not real well known and kind of a character
I mean, he
actor.
passed away several years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say,
But I'm
he
just
could
saying, even
show up in
before that,
Pennyworth
like,
for the Penny.
people didn't talk about Ian Abercrombie, and I've always liked him.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm aware he's dead.
I didn't know that. I was gonna
Austin
suggest
didn't
him
know?
showing up in Pennyworth for the Pennyverse, where all the Alfreds show up.
Oh yeah, no, they should do that. They should.
But now there'll be a few CGI Alfreds now, so he'll just be one
Oh
of them.
no.
They'll call the fourth season the origins of Batman's butlers.
Well, yeah, well, there'll be like a joke where Batman's like, Alfred, can you get me a
Butlerverse.
sandwich? And they'll all show up with a sandwich, and it's like, oh, this is awkward. Which one's he gonna take?
And then you'll have the one Alfred that brings him nachos, and then it'll be
Yeah,
like Batman
that's the
does not
60s
eat
Alfred.
nachos. The '60s Alfred brings nachos. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
One
too late, so he had to get nachos. There was no more sandwich material.
Sorry. Yeah. Go right ahead, Robert, and then we'll go ahead and review a new movie.
one last thing I wanted to say about the Evil Dead franchise is I love the way the show ends without spoiling it. I think it's perfect. Some fans don't like it because it's kind of cliffhanger-y-ish, but that's kind of the point. Like, it feels like an Evil Dead ending. Like, I love the way
I think they
that
should
show
always be
ends.
cliffhangers. I really feel that way right now, and I don't know if I'm allowed to because I haven't seen this stuff enough, and I'm obviously not a fan of this yet. But like, they should always be a cliffhanger every single time. That's how I feel about it right now.
But if the show had continued, what I really wanted was, because the show also does dabble in a time travel a little bit. I don't know if you'd like this, Austin, but I wanted them to do a multiverse thing where Bruce Campbell plays Ash from every single movie interacting with each other, and
Oh,
that's how
you'd
you
be like
explain the
the
continuity
game.
errors. Yeah, exactly. And this is before multiverses were all the rage. Like, this is before the big thing studios were doing. I thought that would have been clever like 5 years ago, and I kind of wish we got that. But that's basically what the game is, so I'm happy more or less.
But it
My
also
dream
would let them do
for
Ash like maybe versus other Ashes to
Yeah,
and still
exactly.
be able to get around Army of Darkness since they didn't have access to that.
so my dream fourth season that would never happen because it would be a legal nightmare would be a season of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, because season 2 goes, the first season was like the, hey, remember Evil Dead season? Let's just do whatever, and it becomes like Ash in the Thing, Ash versus Christine, like just jumping into different horror stuff. That's my dream
That's a good
season.
point.
That would never happen.
I want it as an animated thing. Like, if you could get just Bruce Campbell and Robert Englund
Oh,
to
sure.
voice Ash and Freddy. I just want an animated movie, and I'm good. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
If
get Kane
studios-
Hodder to finally voice Jason for their fight.
You
But
could have
guys,
a motion capture it.
I know this is my cultural cynicism, but someday Disney will own everything, and then you might get your wish because there won't be any rights issues, and then they can put together everything they want to.
Yeah, but then it won't be animated. It'll be live action animated.
Oh,
Yeah.
or it'll be live action and it'll be too long.
We ran all of Freddy Krueger and Ash's dialogue into an AI. Now it can replicate all of their line delivery.
We let Reddit write our Ash versus everything show, and we had Ash run around with Deadpool and kill the whole universe. Like that's what we do.
No, it wouldn't even be them killing the universe. It would be something stupid, like they go to Burger King.
Ash and
This is written by
Deadpool go to
Reddit.
White Castle.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't it be hilariously ironic though, Austin, if they were able to do your dream season, but the only thing they couldn't get the rights to is still Army of Darkness?
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. And it would be especially funny if the that show ran into trouble where the studio was like, "Hey, Freddy and Jason need to win," and they're like, "No, Ash is the only good guy."
That's so weird because Freddy and Jason lose at the end of their own movie each time.
That's
Like, what's the
because like
problem with
every
winning
versus
Ash
movie ends
win?
with both losing.
Yeah, well, we had this conversation. I can't remember if it was on the show last week or off camera, but like he's essentially a superhero. Like the place where I mean, like he's an idiot. He's maybe an anti-hero before he's a superhero, but like he's not a slasher character. Even though I feel like merchandising sometimes and other things forget that, where he gets kind of lumped in with the serial killers of big horror franchises just because he's got a chainsaw and a boomstick and there's blood on him a lot and he's the character you remember from that and he does violent things, but like he's the good guy. He kills the evil things that are trying to murder everyone. It's not the same thing as Jason and Freddy and stuff. So of course he would win. Or if he didn't, it would be it would be kind of a tragedy, even if it was like a comic tragedy thing. But like
It'll be the cliffhanger.
you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a horror hero like Ripley or something. The problem is there isn't like a singular identifiable villain in Evil Dead. It's just Deadites and the book.
You're right. That's why Ripley doesn't have that problem. That's why you still merchandise. Yeah. You still sell Alien real hard on the Alien because you have a creature.
But I mean, I also consider Ash a male scream queen. We don't have enough of those, and he totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's a good point. But then that also we can still sell on Ghostface. Like we don't, Anyway, let's go ahead and move on, if you guys are cool with that, to Halloween Ends. and I want to tack on finally, but probably not forever, because that's how these things go. I want to start right away by saying that I think this is the maybe weirdest trilogy I've ever seen. And I think before that, one of the weirdest trilogies I've ever seen was Halloween. And now the weirdest trilogy I've seen is New Halloween. Austin, would you give us a quick synopsis of Halloween Ends?
Okay, so Halloween Ends is about a young boy who's watching a younger boy, and then he kills that younger boy, and then he meets an old man who tells him to be evil, and then they both get killed by an old woman. And that is Halloween Ends.
Before we move on from that, I missed a couple super chats earlier. I didn't even see that these came in. Since we've got 3 people tonight, and I'm trying to moderate the conversation, I was not moderating the comments real well, so let me go ahead and knock these out real quick. Tom Chidolo super chat just says, review on my favorite Fortnite skin, LOL. Great show. I don't know what he's talking about.
They just added
Is that an Ash thing? Okay.
Is he voiced by Bruce Campbell?
I don't think that game has...
He doesn't really have voice acting.
Well, then I don't care. I don't play it.
Tom, so thank you for the super chat. For the 150th time, we don't play Fortnite. We're not going to. We don't care.
It just makes me sad. All of my favorite characters are slapped into that.
Yeah, like Fortnite can cross all that stuff over. They could give you that season you want, but it would be Fortnite.
Yes, it would be Freddy Krueger running around with a shotgun.
Brightbirds 1985 $4.99. Thank you. Is Austin's PC a potato as far as specs go, or am I wrong? Sorry for the random question. I was just curious.
Shots fired.
Please do Patriot games before 2023, please.
I'm in a smaller window.
So once again, Brightburns is feeling the need to bring up his request on the request. We have an order. We'll get to it. It won't be too long. And I don't know what he's talking about with your computer. Do I
have like the worst image of the three of us?
That's what I was gonna say. Do you have like way worse quality? I mean, maybe. Are you using just whatever webcam your computer comes with, or do you have an external webcam?
No, it's just the webcam on my laptop.
Okay. I think technically your quality is lesser than the other 2 webcams here, but it's not like horrible. Like I can see you. that says Halloween. You know, I can read your shirt.
Yeah, everybody got to see me take my shirt off.
Yeah. It was real racy. That's the raciest thing we've done on the show, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure there were some people that were like, "Ooh, I can't wait to see where this goes."
Almost bailed.
So here's why this is a really super weird trilogy to me, and then we'll go to Robert and see how he feels about Halloween Ends. You start with no pressure. I'm making you go first. You spent an hour with us. We've broken you in. Now it's time for the gauntlet. We're gonna put you in the Sarlacc pit. So we start with a movie that has a really interesting, provocative kind of advertising campaign that people were really kind of curious about, wiping away all of the sequels, all of them, and with Michael Myers in a prison, and all of that just seemed real mysterious and interesting. And then we saw the movie, and a lot of people, I think the majority of people were pretty into it, and thought the filmmaking especially was really nice. And then you get that second movie, and it feels like a direct-to-video movie. At least to me, and like the filmmaking isn't anything like to the first one was. The writing is way worse. Like, it feels like it's made, and maybe it was. I'm not sure because I haven't looked at the background with this all that much. But it seems like it's made by a completely different group of people to me. And a lot of things about it were just super counterintuitive, and it was sappy in a strange way. And like I never want to hear the phrase "evil dies tonight" ever again. And I also don't understand why that doesn't come back in this, because it kind of should have, even though I hate it. And then so you're gonna have some years in real life, in between your first two movies, and I realized that some of this was COVID, these two movies were put off by a year, but like, we took our time to make that second movie. It takes place immediately after the first, and then you're going to make your last two movies back to back, but there's going to be 4 years in between them? What? Why? Why does it feel like an epilogue that should have come out a decade later? Like, it feels like that tacked on thing that you make where whatever that second movie ends up being, where your second movie was the end, but then it did really well, so we went, we could probably get a little bit more. No, this was a planned trilogy. It's bizarre to me that was the choice. It's not the most bizarre thing, but it is kind of bizarre. And retroactively, I'm kind of, thematically and stuff, kind of wishing that we had just ended this off with the end of that last movie, where the point is, yeah, evil does not die tonight. Michael Myers will continue to live on. We don't need to make any more of these movies because he's never going to die. So, like, there's really no point, right? But no, we had to make one where it ends. And that's not giving anything away because it's in the title. And also, it's hilarious that the Nolan trilogy didn't end with Batman Ends, but we finally have one that has that title. Let's go to Robert and see how he feels about Halloween Ends.
Oh dear. Okay, are we gonna do the sign flip thing, green or red? Because I have an idea.
Oh, do you?
Honor.
Everybody always has to get creative with it. 'Cause nobody else has the sign.
Nobody has the sign.
I haven't made one yet.
I always want to try to get people to make signs or send people signs, but then I have so much fun watching what you're doing right now, just to see what people come up with.
Yeah, I can't make something.
So, in honor of Army of Darkness, I have Evil Dead green, the Evil Dead remake red, which I like both of these movies. I don't like one of them having a more negative connotation than the other, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Some people are liking this movie, which I don't understand, but go right ahead.
This is a lukewarm green. I did not love it.
Okay, why are you lukewarm flipping your sign feeling it?
I was just with it. I was with the lead character. I love the opening scene. I feel like if you like the opening scene of this movie, that's going to be a good basis to see if you're going to dig the rest of it or not. I didn't mind it. I thought the actor, regardless of what I think about the writing, which could use a lot of work, and what you were saying about how strange this is as a trilogy, the lead actor I thought was very good. I enjoyed watching him, even though he's a very unlikable character. I like the slower pace, and despite many issues I have with this film, I appreciated the focus on so few characters, and the movie just takes its time more. And there was nothing in this movie that made me angry, which I know isn't exactly high praise, but sometimes a movie like this comes out, and there was nothing that personally really bothered me. Like, a lot of people wish Michael Myers was in the movie for. I didn't have an issue with that. I've got plenty of Michael Myers movies. They tried something different, and I don't want to give it credit just for trying something different. I'm saying that I liked it more than I didn't. I enjoyed watching it for the most part. Compared to other franchise endings, I thought this one was okay. I appreciated the finality of it. I got some closure, even if I didn't love the movie. I got a little bit of closure, and obviously they'll reboot and do something different with Michael Myers again. The best case scenario for me would be if they finally go back to the anthology format, where we make another Halloween movie that has nothing to do with Michael Myers and give that a try again. Then I'd be very happy, regardless of what you think about this movie. And I don't know, this is a weird franchise for me because I love that first movie so much, and most of these movies are so lame that my standards are just so low by this point. I have my Halloween movies I like and the ones I dislike. I didn't love Kills. I like 2018 a lot. But it's a weird franchise where it's stopped and restarted so many times. Look, if you love the first Halloween, you've got Halloween 2, you've got H2O, you've got 2018, and now you have this one. Hopefully you like one of those movies and you have closure somewhere. This is very much a time will tell for me for this movie. Like, I don't know how many of these movies I'm going to rewatch next year, next October, or if I'll think, Halloween and Halloween 2018, I'm good. But I didn't hate this movie. I liked it more than I didn't.
Real quick before we go to Austin, you mentioned something that I hadn't thought of, which is this would have, and I'll just say real quick that I'm hearing a lot of people saying missed opportunities with this movie, and I'm very much in that camp, with a lot of ideas that I thought were potentially interesting that weren't taken far enough, or the right things maybe weren't done with. But one of those might be, Robert, the potential for this to have been I mean, I don't know if you would want all these things in continuity when you're talking about anthology, but this might have been an opportunity to like in continuity transition to that format. When you have a like new slasher that's taking after Michael Myers, which is kind of the obvious thing to do. The way they did it was not especially obvious, which is a thing I like in premise that I didn't care for in execution. But you could have had you get rid of Michael Myers earlier or before this movie, and then this guy is your bad guy, and then after that you even put the mask away and you do different things. Like, this could have been a transition into anthology format.
I disagree because part of what I liked about what they did with his character in this movie was I feel like if this movie was just Laurie versus Michael, and this is the end for real this time, I feel like the obvious lame thing to do after Halloween Ends would be to do the copycat killer. So it's like the filmmakers got that out of the way. Like, nope, whether you like it or not, we're doing that here. So the studio doesn't get to do that. They might, I don't know, but it is.
But this did both, and that made it worse, I think. Like, I think the copycat killer thing, again, is the obvious thing to do, and it sounds lame on paper, but I don't know. If it had started in a different place, I think they could have actually maybe won me over on it, which is weird, and that's part of why I didn't care for this. But, sorry, go ahead.
Would you, because what's weird, and I don't mind Halloween Kills, as I don't dislike it as much as you guys did. I was really sour on it last year, and then rewatching it this year, I was a little bit more into it. What's weird about these two movies being back to back, but having that 4-year time jump, but now 2018 and Kills are kind of one movie. It feels like this is the story that should have been two movies.
Yeah.
Where if you had introduced this Corey character the last movie, I feel like you might have liked this one more, or the story might have flowed better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst part about this movie is Kills, because Kills is entirely a filler movie, and like you kind of don't need it. Like, you could jump from 2018 to this one, and just as long as you just know that Laurie's daughter died in between movies, like that's the only thing of consequence that really happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think the folks that are digging on this movie, not to put words in your mouth, but a lot of what I'm hearing from people that are liking this movie is, well, at least it's not just another, like, series of a bunch of kills. It's not just, once again, Michael Myers going to random places and killing people, and that's what Kills was, and I was bored with it, and also the writing was terrible, and I thought it was unnecessarily mean-spirited, which is a complaint that I would throw at this too. But Austin, how did you feel about this movie? I've basically already done mine, I guess, but we'll keep talking about it. Go ahead. How do you feel about this, Austin?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to give like a round of applause to David Gordon Green for being the first person to finish a Halloween trilogy. Especially because I never thought Rob Zombie's trilogy would be finished. So, round of applause for making the third film that has no likable character in it. So the way I would describe this movie is Michael Myers meets Rob Zombie's Michael Myers, where it's that nature versus nurture thing, and Corey is what the remake tried to do with Michael, which is he is like nurture, and we see like everything's crap, everything's bad for him, and like we see how he becomes the shape. And like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, I don't like this character. None of that stuff really works for me. I think the writing's really bad in this movie and the last one. I don't know, 2018's got issues, but they kind of double down on everything I don't like in 2018, and like it just gets worse and worse with each movie, I think. As for the whole like, oh, it's not got Michael Myers in it thing, like I don't care. I think, like you said, Robert, this should be the 2-part movie. I would have killed Michael off in the last movie, and then this movie's just the fallout, and we deal with all of that, and we completely move on. And because he is like a pin in this movie that I don't need.
The only keep going.
No, go ahead.
The one thing I did like about Michael's portrayal in this, without giving too much away in spoilers, that genuinely surprised me was, oh, we're playing him older. Like, this is Michael Myers past his prime. We've never done that before. I don't think the movie explores that enough, but I found that interesting and different. That he's
why?
like actually an old man.
But why 4 years ago did he not feel that way and now he does? Like, it plays like he sustains like some kind of huge, major, intense injuries last time that he's always been able to come back from with no problem. He's in a video game, if he's the protagonist, where if he walks away for a while, his life meter automatically goes back up to full green, right? And so here, I don't get why he's limping around. I don't get why he's having such a hard time. That didn't play as older to me, Robert. That played as something, he's injured.
Well, for me, it was that Last Jedi thing, right? Where it's, this movie is both years after the last one and minutes after, where like everybody else has kind of moved on, but Michael still feels like he just got beat up by an entire town like a minute ago.
Yeah.
And like, I don't, all of that was awkward. I also think,
and Robert, I don't mean to crap on your interpretation. I'm just saying,
yeah,
like, I'm just saying, I didn't see.
I'm glad that you liked it.
Like,
it just didn't work for me.
That's fine.
And if we were going to play him that way, it should have been that way the whole trilogy.
Well, okay, here's the problem.
He's only 4 years older. It's
still
40 years after 1978. He should have that problem from the beginning.
Well, and also if you know, like, because you're making these movies back to back, don't end your last movie on he gets beaten by an entire town, gets up, kills everybody, teleports through a crowd, kills a random woman in a house, and then disappears into the night again. And then open your next movie on he can barely stand. Like, it's just kind of awkward storytelling, I think. And like I said, I don't have the like, oh, you guys ruined Michael Myers thing. Like, I don't care. Like, kill him off, whatever. Sorry, you were trying to say something.
Oh, no, I was just, the problem is 2018 Michael Myers is like, okay, we're going to make him human again. Like, he's hard to kill, he's a really strong guy, but he's human and it's believable enough. Then Halloween Kills, it's like we're leaning into him being supernatural again. And then this movie goes back on that, and that's a problem. I'm agreeing with you that there is an inconsistency there where, like, they can't make up their mind. They're trying to play it ambiguous, but they can't make up their mind. It, like, Cap, it's like what you always say with Zack Snyder and BVS, how, like, you have to just consider some of those action scenes not canon.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how I feel with Michael, with Kills especially, with all the injuries he sustains. It's some of it's like, okay, you just have to pretend it's not canon. And how I saw it was, well, those injuries have stuck with him. And even though it's 4 years later, he's still pretty messed up after that. But you guys are right that there are inconsistencies, and that is a problem.
I also want to attack the like the different thing with this movie, because that is like a big praise that I hear about this movie, is how much different it is. And it is in Halloween standards. It also isn't in a way, in that we kind of just went, hey, remember the ending of 4? What if that was the movie? Like, what if we started on the ending of 4 and then moved on? Which is what I think.
I forgot about that, because the ending of 4 is there's a kid that just pretends to be Michael Myers, right?
Yeah, it sets up the transition from Michael to another person. And it just kind of goes, okay, well, what if we flesh that out? And then just goes, I just watched Christine. Does anybody remember Christine? I also just watched It. Like, this movie is incredibly derivative, just not of Halloween movies.
Yeah, I'm not giving it credit for being original. I don't know. I enjoyed the change of pace for this series. And like I said earlier, this is a really lame franchise as a whole. It's weird because I love that first movie so much. But it's not like Friday the 13th, where it's consistent mediocrity.
No, it's
With
that
some
trashy
great kills
level,
and stuff.
and it knows exactly where to hit, and it's consistent through all of them until like 9. But
I like 9.
absolutely,
This might not be fair, but I feel like there's a certain, and I haven't seen those, so I have no dog in that. I,
You
I,
should.
I will eventually. That's the one big franchise of these that I have not gone through yet, because I finally did the Nightmare movies, and I did a video on all of that, and I did a video on the Halloween movies, and a lot of that's out of my head now. As soon as he mentioned the kid in the uniform, I was like, oh, I remember that. I understood
yeah,
that
because
reference.
that ending's awesome. Donald Pleasance plays it so great. Like that's the best thing of that movie. That movie's like, but that ending where Donald Pleasance is like, no, and then takes out his pistol and tries to shoot a
Yeah,
child.
that's
is
right.
Awesome.
So I don't know if this is fair, but this is just how I feel about it. I think it's how I feel about it. It's in the title. I think if you're going to wipe away a bunch of sequels to a franchise because there's too much continuity, or that you don't want to deal with, or they don't work and it's fallen apart, there's a particular standard of quality you've got to hold on to, or I'm not going to see that as justified. And that's how I really felt about Kills, where I was like, okay, this was not a franchise worth doing now. Like in wiping away everything we had before. Not that I'm in love with Halloween 2 or any of the sequels, but like, okay, what was the point of that then, if we're just gonna have like movies that are as lame as those sequels? And I'm in that same place with this. And so, Robert, I don't have that sense of closure that you do for a couple of reasons. I'm just having a hard time like buying the fiction is part of it, but also we do lean in so much into the supernatural, and I haven't seen 2018 in a while, and I forgot that movie, as much as you're saying anyway, is trying to like not humanize him, but make him, you know, physically more human. But these last two movies really lean into here's how supernatural he is, to the point that there's even discussion about it from characters in this movie, where they're like, you know, speculating about what he's capable of, and if he's, you know, just a force of nature and a wraith or whatever. So you get to the end of this movie, and spoilers, his body is like completely hacked up in like a meat grinder or something, and I'm like, he can come back from that.
Yeah, it should have been called Halloween Blends, because we threw him in a blender at the end.
It was different. We didn't burn him again.
Sure, but I'm just
that
saying
shot is also really funny.
I think he can come back from anything. I don't buy it. I found myself, as always, I don't want to rewrite the thing, and I don't mean that it's bad because it's not what I wanted, but I'm saying this retroactively. After the point Kills makes, that that whole town doesn't have a chance at beating Michael Myers, I want the point to be it goes on forever, and then there's no reason to ever make another one. It's all like I'm almost fearing more crappy remakes and sequels to this because we killed him. If that makes any sense at all. That's, I don't know, that's one of my many issues with this. But
this franchise has ended so many times and has had so many second chances.
That's why I wish 2018 was one movie. Hell, that's enough closure for me. I don't even need a sequel to that.
Oh, sure.
I don't even need a sequel to the first one. Like,
yeah,
I feel
of course.
Anything moving past one ruins the ending of the first one, and just like how beautiful and simple it is. Like, you can make a good sequel to the first one, but it's like inherently it kind of loses what's so great about that.
Yeah, it's inherently a singular piece.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I agree with that to an extent.
Kind of like Jurassic Park. I mean, there's a lot of these, right, where we just keep making more because they're popular.
And just like Jurassic Park 3 is the second best one. Okay, move on. Robert, what are you saying?
Well, I liked this better than Dominion, and that's all I'll say about that. Like I said, it's one of those series where you're right, it doesn't need a sequel.
It has things in common with Dominion,
perfect.
which is weird.
I don't know if you'll disagree with me on this. I got more closure with this movie than I did that. This at least felt like an ending more than that one did, but I don't need to go back
I feel
to
like
that.
the ending thing
But it's so tacked on. It's like, oh, and by the way, we gotta kill Mike Myers, who's just been like limping around and had a kid sidekick, and I don't know why he wanted that, and yeah.
Well, it does, like, the entire movie stops and then it goes, okay, the next 20 minutes is going to be the end of a franchise that the rest of this movie wasn't about.
Yeah,
Almost like they had like an ending and then went, what do we do? I don't know. Like, and then they came up with like a different movie uh, to build up to that point. I'm not sure exactly how they got there, and that's part of why I wish that this was the last movie. Like, you did all of this there because it feels so just tacked on, and that like 15 minutes after they kill Michael is, I think, the most pretentious thing in any Halloween movie, where they go, "Oh, he's dead." Not dead enough, and then they tie him to the roof of a car, and they're like, "That's not how we do things around here." Well, it is tonight, and then you have like a slow mo shot of just like it's like
That's where
Field of
somebody should have
Dreams.
said "Evil Dies Tonight." Like, I couldn't believe
Yeah,
nobody said that.
and then you have like the Field of Dreams shot where there's like lines of cars going back, all ready to kill Michael, and it's in all in slow mo, and then he already gets crucified when she kills him, but then like they like carry him off like like Jesus, or like that Spider-Man 2 train shot, and then they drop him into a
yeah, that
grinder.
show was weird.
I would have given this movie a 10 out of 10 just for like hilarity if they turn the grinder on, Laurie starts to kick him in, and then Michael just grabs her and they both fall in.
I would have
10
hated
out of
that.
10.
Oh
But
no, actually, I love that. Well, because I hate her now.
she is not even like, she's just Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. She just walks around dropping like weird F-bomb lines that Jamie Lee Curtis would say, but Laurie wouldn't.
Yeah,
I
and
can't
she's
say this
so
on the channel.
sanctimonious, and
Yeah.
and we
I
keep
can't
doing
say this
these.
on the channel, but there's a very
Yeah,
weird thing she says to her granddaughter about finding a
Mhm.
boy, and
are you
it's
talking
like,
about toward the beginning?
yes,
Yes.
Is it I guess the most diplomatic way I could say, is it the kind of chesty line?
yes,
I
which
couldn't deal
also
with
gave me
that.
the biggest scare in this movie because she's like, you got to rip off your shirt and like show a dude your yeah, and when she walks out at the end to meet her love interest, she's holding a robe like this. And I was like, oh, please, God, don't pay that off. Please, God, don't pay that off.
At least if they had paid that off, you would have known that you probably weren't going to get the obligatory "Do you see anything you like?" line because we had it already. So you would at least wouldn't have to be worried that you were gonna get her saying that.
Okay, but that's also kind of funny. If we did it like that shot where you don't see anything and it's just like shoulders and head, and she said, see anything you like, then I probably would have laughed at that.
No, that would be horrible.
That would have been awful. And
But
then
yeah,
we end on
you
Don't
know,
Fear the Reaper, because remember the first movie?
yeah,
I don't know. It's look, I don't
I don't
want
mean to
to
attack you,
give the
Robert.
movie.
I'm glad that you liked it. It's just, it
It's
really hit me in a place.
I have a very love-hate relationship with this franchise because I love the first one, and I mean Resurrection I still think is the worst one. Like that, I hate that movie.
I'm not going
It's
to mention my hot
hilarious.
take on that.
it's really painful. But I gotta tell you, Robert, and I'm not trying to go on the attack either. Austin and I just simply just are more in the same vein, I guess. Although I saw more potential in this than I think Austin did, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, because a lot of my dislike for this is disappointment, because I thought there were some cool things we could have done with this, maybe. But I felt like I was watching Resurrection, watching this. Like, I had very much that same experience with it.
And I kind of like Resurrection because it's awful schlock and it's
Yeah,
really funny.
I can
But
enjoy it more on that level now than I did when I was younger.
I
no,
can
no,
Like that
that's
was all we
I
had.
hate that movie with a
like, I would watch that a million times over H2O. I hate H2O.
I don't like H2O
H2O to
anymore
me
either,
is an
but
entire movie of the last 15 minutes of this movie,
yeah, that's
and
true.
I hate it.
And
And
she's written
Resurrection
kind
is
of
just
like
like,
this
we
in that
stopped
too.
caring. It's schlock. But I know that's my biggest hot take on Halloween.
But like I said, that's kind of what I was saying earlier was, well, this is a franchise. A, the first movie doesn't need a sequel.
Right.
But B, if you want to watch
Most
the
sequels are
sequels
lame.
and you like some of the sequels, you get to pick your poison. Like there's something you will like, whether it's Halloween 2 or that or 2018. There's probably one of those you like that you can get some closure on. So that's why I don't feel the disappointment that Cap feels, because when 2018 came out, like that was enough for me. Like I didn't need sequels. And in some ways I feel vindicated, but I'm more just kind of like looking at what I got. I didn't come into this movie with like high expectations
Well, I mean, I
either
didn't
way.
either.
Yeah,
I'm just
same.
being honest.
I honestly didn't want to watch it, but I just
That's fair.
but I did for, I guess, just the sake of completion because I've seen all of the others.
Yeah, I got I wasn't gonna go see it, and then a friend was like, "Hey, we saw the first two together, so are we gonna go see this one?" And it was like, I guess so. Oh, I also, this is like not the movie's fault, but I saw this in D-Box. I don't know if it's the same thing for you guys because our theaters are different. Those like
Oh,
seats
no.
that shake.
Yeah.
One of the most obnoxious theater experiences because this movie has a lot of just stupid jump scares, and every time it happened, it was like,
Oh man, that sucks. I just watched it on Peacock, so I don't have to deal with it.
it was pretty rough. It was not a great way to watch it.
Robert, did you go to a theater or did you watch it at home?
We
I-
don't have Peacock, so.
Well, no,
it's
but I
just-
was asking.
Oh,
Robert.
sorry, my headphones were off, so I didn't hear the last few minutes.
No, I went to the theater. I saw the last two in the theater. So if I watch this movie again, it will be on Peacock. Now I'm torn though, because even though I'm the only person here who gave it a positive review, I have the original on Blu-ray. I have 2018 on Blu-ray. And then Kills, I was so 50-50. I'm like, do I buy that Blu-ray? I guess. And now with Ends, it's like, well, I'm obligated to complete the set. This is my life.
That's like
But
me with the 4Ks.
Mhm.
I got the first one, and I was like, I don't need anything else. And I was like, but I also like the third movie. So I was like, hey, Mom, for Christmas, could you get me the third one for Christmas? And then I finally buckled down recently and got 2 and 4. And then they just released 6, H2O, and Resurrection. And I'm like, am I going to end up buckling down because I don't want to own any of those movies?
Yeah, I didn't get the
4K.
I didn't get the Shout Factory set because I don't like most of these movies.
Exactly.
Let me read a couple comments real quick, and then we'll get back into the discussion, just so that we're not shafting the live audience. And thanks a lot for being here, guys. Really appreciate you, as always. Fidelio, she's comically hysterical in 2018 and stuck in a chair in Kills. Here she's a real person. Oh boy, do I not agree with that at all. But she is...
It's also really weird because...
I don't think anybody's a real person in this movie, by the way. And I think...
No, I don't like anyone.
And
in
I
this
think
movie.
Corey actually sort of starts off as one, and that's where I do disagree with Austin a little bit. I think he's actually, even though I just don't buy the situation at the beginning at all. I think, Robert, you mentioned if you don't like that opening scene, it probably is hard to appreciate the rest of the movie. Maybe it lives and dies on that. I thought the whole thing was built on a real faulty premise, maybe a couple of real faulty premises, and one of them is I don't understand how that kid winds up over that staircase. Like I almost wanted to rewind it and look at it over and over again. I don't see how it even happens, like, logistically, but like
it's really unintentionally funny.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's so. But the problem is, I don't feel like the movie wants me to enjoy it on the basis of like this is, black comedy. I felt like it wanted me to take it more seriously than I could.
You might be right about
there's
that.
a pretension about this and Kills, I think, where
I agree.
it wants me to think it's a lot smarter than it is, and if I have to take it on what I feel like are its terms, I find it actually really offensive. And like if I could enjoy it as, because I don't mean to be a prude about it, if I could enjoy it as a goofy slasher picture, sure. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll go ahead and make this point now since we're here. But the problem is, I don't like what it seems to be saying about mental illness. That's my big issue with it. Like Corey is in my mind at the beginning actually kind of a sympathetic protagonist. Like what
I
happened,
think he's supposed to be.
What happened to him is not fair, and then the way he transforms into the killer and is taking after Michael Myers. I'm not with it with the premise of here's the two types of evil, the like evil without and the evil within, because he doesn't turn into pure evil. He's just a guy that got a bad break, and kind of like the Joker, he's got his one bad day. He still should be to some degree a sympathetic character, sympathetic in the sense that we see how he got there. The movie is telling me that he is Michael Myers now, and that there's not a human being there anymore, and that I should be enjoying his getting his comeuppance, and it doesn't work at all. Now Laurie is against the two different types of the shape, because now he's one of the shapes. She should find him sympathetic. Somebody should be trying to get him help. This kid, there's no talk whatsoever about attempting to rehabilitate this guy. All we get, and again, unintentionally funny, all we get is Laurie going, I looked in his eyes, and I've seen that look before, and he's pure evil. He's the new shape. No, he's not. He's a guy who accidentally got a kid killed, and the whole town turned against him, and he's been having a hard time living his life after that, and now he's having to deal with bullies and stuff, and then he gets pushed off of a bridge or something by some bullies, and then he now has his like supervillain origin story, and something he's a new shape now. I don't buy any of that, and I think if the people making this movie gave it like 6 seconds of thought, it's actually really offensive. Like that's my big takeaway from this, and it lost me completely at that point.
That's completely fair. And at the beginning, he is supposed to be sympathetic. I mean, that kid they make pretty unlikable, so you don't feel too bad about it. But Corey, like I said earlier, what was keeping me through it, and I have a lot of the same issues with the writing that you do, I just liked his performance. Despite the issues with I didn't find him like he was unlikable, but the performance was kind of keeping me with it. Do you guys?
I think her granddaughter is fine too. I think everybody gets insanely over the top by the end. Everybody sucks by the end of the movie, but when they think they're playing human beings, they're fine. Except for Laurie. She's terrible all the way through. But then you even have a chance...
She gets the worst dialogue.
But you even have a chance at redeeming her a little bit. Sorry, I've taken over. I'll let you guys talk in a second. You even have a chance at redeeming her a little bit when you get the character parallel between her and Corey. And by the way, one of the things that I can't stop laughing at with this movie that I absolutely hate is that we have this really clear character parallel where these two characters are being blamed for the Halloween scenario when they're not, of course, Michael Myers or none of this is exactly their fault. And really, his name has to rhyme with her name. Corey and Laurie? Really? We did that? That's preposterous.
I don't even know if that's intentional.
I can't believe they did that. That's writing 101 crap. You don't have main characters' names rhyme. But I just think like, but I think there's a chance at redeeming her when she sees some of herself in him and is trying to help him along. And then there's this light switch change toward the middle where now I don't want him dating my granddaughter, and he's pure evil incarnate. And I'm like, no, he's not. Like, stop it.
Can I talk about that for a second? Because that is, I think, my biggest issue with the movie is you have Laurie introducing Corey to her granddaughter, and I like some of that stuff, and then Laurie is the one who turns on him for no reason halfway through because she saw him creepy standing behind some bushes like Michael for a second, and then she says, I looked into his eyes and I saw Michael. I was like, well, this feels unnecessary or kind of a leap. That's my biggest problem with the movie, is the way that turn comes. You're right, there should be more of a push and pull with these characters throughout the movie, like trying to save his soul.
It's the same thing as
and he should be more sympathetic by the end. You're
it's
right.
The John Blake thing in Rises, but even more contrived. Remember that where he says like, I looked into Bruce Wayne's eyes and I could tell he must be Batman.
Yeah, but we talked about the eyes in the original movie, which came from like an actual Carpenter thing. Now it's just right to that dialogue.
Yeah. Those horrible yellow eyes. But I
Yeah,
don't.
exactly.
But like, I don't know. Even if she would be able to look into somebody's eyes and tell that what happened to Michael Myers has happened to that person, it didn't with this kid. You'll never convince me that's what happened.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They
I
made
also
him
just
too
think it's
sympathetic
awkward.
if that's what's supposed to happen. Like, and also, then way more people should be pure evil. That's what I find offensive about it. Is I feel like you should be able to come back from that. The original
Well, he's
point with the
pure
first
evil
movie is
because they
that this kid
Vulcan
was
mind
just born
meld.
bad. Like,
No, he's evil cat because he Vulcan mind melded with Michael Myers. They looked
Yeah.
longingly into each other's eyes, and then their brains fused.
this is turning into something of a spoiler cast, and so like we'll just say full spoilers at this point. Can somebody explain to me how Corey? I mean, he shouldn't have survived the fall, or at least he should have sustained some injuries. But whatever with that. But how was he pulled back from that? Like, is that supposed to be Michael Myers, or
I
did
think
somebody
so.
else grab him? Okay, but then like, why?
The crazy homeless guy says that Michael like drags people in there and kills
Like he
them
drags
for some
hobos.
reason.
Okay, and so he didn't drag him because he saw something like him in him, but then he didn't kill him because he saw himself in him or something, right? But then
That's what I
later
don't
he
like about it.
tries to kill him when he's full on evil. I don't know why. Is it just because he stole his mask? But didn't he try to kill him
Yes.
before that, or am I misremembering
Yeah.
Well,
that?
they team up a couple times.
Yeah, because Corey's his kid sidekick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. When they first see each other, the first time you see Michael in this, it's him choking Corey, and then they Vulcan mind meld, and then Michael lets him go.
And the movie is really vague. If there's something, they're trying to play it both ways. So it's like, is it supernatural? We don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But
Hmm.
that should be a longer, slower scene where it's still going to tick off some fans no matter what. But
Yeah.
the idea of Michael sparing someone and then just like sitting and like looking at each other quiet, like that could have been really cool. Like I was on board for that concept, but that scene is so rushed. And like you said, Austin, it does feel like a Vulcan mind meld. And they're really
Yeah.
trying to have it both ways. Like, is it supernatural? I don't know.
Well, it's really weird because he's like choking him, and then they like their minds connect, and then they like see through the past. I don't know, but then
Or is it just because he's old and weak and unable to kill him, and that's why Corey gets away? I don't know.
yeah, but then when he's choking Laurie at the end, they also have the Vulcan mind meld. Just so we can show flashbacks of the first movie to make it feel like it's like this bigger ending.
Yeah.
I
But-
didn't like the flashback.
But there's also a
montages.
scene where Laurie is talking to Corey, and Corey is like, when you looked into his eyes, you should have given into that feeling, as if this is something that's been there since the first movie. Like he just could always look into your soul and then make you evil.
So he had like a penance stare or something?
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. It's going down.
Other stuff I didn't buy with this, toward the end, the granddaughter just kind of having the light switch moment where she's okay with Laurie again for like no good reason. That doesn't. It's like, well, we killed Michael, so now I guess I no longer think that you killed my boyfriend for no good reason. Like, I don't understand that. By the end, they've reconciled, and we don't get any on-screen discussion about it. Maybe they talked about it later. It was all a misunderstanding, but it wasn't really a misunderstanding. Especially if Fidelio is right. Let me read this comment, because Fidelio liked this movie, and I didn't. He says, I don't think he is pure evil, and I don't think that's what they're getting at. I think it's meant to be sympathetic, and Laurie is meant to be dismissive and wrong. I get the sense that the movie at the end is on her side in... especially the way the dialogue is written, where it feels, and I've talked about this in lots of other things, where you get that dialogue writing that is so specific and precise that it feels like it's exposition before it's a character's feelings, and that's part of what I like. I had that with this, where she's like, you could have almost put this on a poster, right? I've learned there are two kinds of evil, of pure evil, and one comes from outside the brain, and that's Michael, and one comes from within, and that's you. And if she's supposed to be wrong, does she learn anything by the end of the movie? Does she figure out that she's wrong? Why, like Fidelia, where are you getting that from? Because I don't see it in the movie. If she's supposed to be incorrect about that, I don't see that there's any consequence to her for that. Do you guys think I'm off base on that?
Well, I just feel like the last two movies only exist to stroke Jamie Lee Curtis's ego. I don't know. I have trouble looking at her now, not in the same way that you do with Patrick Stewart and Picard. Like, it's just like, yeah, we took this thing and like this Halloween is like all Carpenter and Deborah Hill's legacy, and it's now just like, it was Jamie Lee Curtis's. Let her win finally. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. Like, she was just a woman that was cast in that first movie.
Yeah.
Can I disagree?
Go for it.
I like her in these movies, 2018 in particular. I think she's really good in that. I like what they did with Laurie in that movie. Some people didn't. They thought she was too nutty and extreme. And I'm like, well, that's what I like about it. She's the new Loomis. She's the crazy Michael Myers is pure evil. And I think that's
It's
fun.
weirder now, though, right?
It is weirder now. Where I disagree about
like, this should be where she starts in 2018. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is where she should start in 2018, and she should build to the 2018 if you're a trilogy where she like starts as kind of like she's living her life, but like she's still got some of that and then becomes crazier as you go. That's like the more obvious character arc, but instead she just kind of goes, I'm done being crazy.
If there's any faulty premise in 2018, it's that the place she starts in that one makes more sense if he's just been missing for 40 years. If he's not locked up that whole time.
That's a good point.
Now she's moved on and still living in Haddonfield. That's one of my other main issues with this movie is why wouldn't you and your granddaughter move away?
Why does Haddonfield celebrate Halloween?
Well, Halloween 6 explored that.
Yeah, but that's not in continuity anymore, and I'm really asking that when you get to the beginning of this. And the point is supposed to be that Haddonfield turned this guy into the new Michael Myers or whatever. Not Mike Myers. That'd be a very different movie.
Groovy, baby.
One last thing.
Yeah.
My main disagreement with Austin, with you comparing her, like the actress taking over the character, to Picard, is, to me, as much as I love that first Halloween, Laurie Strode was always kind of a blank slate. Like, she's good in it. She's innocent. I get it. You root for her, but that's a character you can kind of do anything with after that movie, as opposed to Picard, where you have 8 seasons of character development and personality that a new show kind of wipes away. So I just disagreed with that comparison. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, no, that's fair. I just mean more so in the sense that I look at her now and it's like, like that's the Picard way. Where I'm like, I see a lot of the issues I have with her characterization as something that she came to it with, in the same way that I have with H2O. But
that's fine. And I liked 2018 better than I liked H2O. So.
And I agree. I don't think 2018 is perfect, but it's probably the best Michael Myers sequel. I feel like if you were to take elements from 2018 and 2, you could probably make like the kind of perfect sequel.
Well, that's why I liked some of the stuff in Kills. I really disagreed with Cap saying that looks like a TV movie or made for TV, because I think that movie looks great. And the fact that, like, in the flashbacks, when you see Donald Pleasance in Halloween Kills, that's not a digital effect. That's just a guy in makeup.
That's the only stuff I thought
that's amazing.
Was artistically shot, though. The rest of that movie I thought was pretty phoned in.
Yeah, well, I've
seen it one time, and I kind of don't want to ever have to look at it again. But that was my feeling after one time seeing it a year ago.
My big
it's not as good as 2018
with Kills. Yeah, my big cheap thing with Kills is that ending scene where it's like they're all beating Michael Myers, and then he transitions into a black void like he's in Mortal Kombat doing a special move, and then he gets up and kills everyone. It looks so cheap.
It's kind of cool.
Let me read
Yeah.
the super chat real quick from Fidelio, and I figured this would come up. 499 super chat. I doubt it'll change your mind, Cap, but you should check out the Red Letter Media video on it. They make some interesting points in its favor. I watch most of their stuff, and of course I will look at that. And kind of thought that would come out before we ended up doing this, but that was just today, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And Austin has.
I watched it work.
But yeah, I was a little surprised to hear that they liked this, I guess, and I'll look at that. But
Well, like
yeah.
the first comment I saw was someone saying that the Red Letter Media guys liked Halloween Ends, and I was not sure if they were being sarcastic or not because they didn't like 2018. They hated Kills, so I just assumed they'd hate this one too. So that's a real, and I like those guys, but I assumed that they would hate this one.
No, I was on Twitter the other day and I was just like
But also,
scrolling, and
I don't
saw.
always agree with them either. Like,
Yeah.
I love their stuff. I don't want to spend all of our time just talking about another channel. But like, you know, they've been in my mind off base on things before. I don't get Mike in Rogue One. Like, I'll never understand that. But anyway, go ahead.
Let's never talk about Rogue One, Cap. Anyways,
No,
moving on.
let's not. I also don't agree with Austin quite often.
Yeah, that is true. Cap and I disagree about almost everything, and then we just swear at each other after the
See,
shows end.
what's weird about it is somehow and not that I care. It's fun and interesting to disagree on things. We end up with when we do how we felt abouts and requests, Austin. We end up flipping our sign the same way almost all the time. But there's so much stuff that
That
we
we've
haven't
never
talked
reviewed
about
that we disagree on.
that we really disagree on. Yeah, like
Well,
we
I
could
was
go.
thinking about that the other day.
We could go rounds and rounds and rounds on Wonder Woman just all day long. Like, I love that movie. Austin says it's one of the 10 worst superhero movies ever made. He's just patently
not that
incorrect
far.
about that. No, you said that.
I don't know if I've said that, but it is trash. That movie's awful.
It's not. It's
I
not
love that
trash.
movie.
But I swear to God, you said
Gonna
that
go
once.
now.
Where you sent
I
me
probably
a
have at
list
some
of the
point.
10 worst superhero movies, and that was on it.
It probably was. That
You
was
also
probably
might have just been
before-
trolling me. That's entirely possible.
That was also probably. Actually, I think I do remember this. I think that was before 2 came out, and I feel like that was number 10. So that probably knocked it off. And we've had like bigger trash since then. So it's probably in the top 20 at this point, but it's not in the top 10.
I love Wonder Woman, and don't look at my ET steelbook. I know how you feel about ET. Don't look at that.
I was like, kill it with fire.
Yeah.
It's okay to disagree, guys. Fidelio, by the end, she comes to the conclusion. This is back with what we were talking about earlier. Now I'm just having a conversation with Fidelio. By the end, she comes to the conclusion that evil doesn't die; it changes shape. To me, that reads less as Corey is inherently evil, but a consequence of that can change. I don't.
So I actually have
see
a
that.
point about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the end when she's writing her book is like, I killed my boogeyman.
I also don't trust that any of that like narration and stuff actually means anything. Like the writing in this is just really bad, and I don't want to give too much credence to that stuff because I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of like character shifting and people who seem to be motivated by one thing and then they switch real hard, and so I don't know. Like I don't trust the movie with that stuff. But anyway, I'm sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So what she says is, I killed my boogeyman, but evil never dies. It just changes shape. That feels like a hangover from the ending that they almost did, where Corey disappears into the night like Michael does, and that's evil changing shape, and they just didn't rewrite that.
That's fair.
I mean, I guess it still could technically work, but like I feel like it almost takes me out because it's like, oh, that was clearly written for this other ending that you didn't go with.
Yeah, like I just Fidelio, I don't understand how the evil. You might be right. That might be exactly what happened because I don't understand how evil changes shape would equate to there's this guy that I thought was pure evil, like Michael Myers, but he's dead now, and I've come to realize that he was just a person. And we killed Michael. Like, where's the shape changing? What changed? We killed everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to kill Michael before getting rid of Corey to make that work. On its own, I do like that line. I actually do like that line, but I'm not saying the movie.
I don't think it
earns
fits with this movie. And also one of my big takeaways from this movie, I should have led with this, is Laurie Strode is a terrible, terrible writer, and no one should buy her book.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I think it's really funny. So I was reading an interview with David Gordon Green, and he was talking about the Corey thing, and he was like, originally we were gonna set Corey up like he disappears into the night, and you go, okay, move forward. Corey is the Shape 2.0. He's the villain now. Go forward. And then he was working on it, and he went, no, but I love Corey. He's mine. I don't want anybody to touch him. And I was like, A, that's embarrassing, but also B, you like changed your ending just because you liked your character too much and you didn't want anybody else to touch him while you're working on a franchise that's not your own. And he's also partly ripped off from something that is from an adaptation by that same director of another person's book.
It's also more screwed
I
up
don't
when
know,
you
that's
pay
weird.
when you look at the story of the movie, because that character says, if I can't have that girl, no one will.
I can't believe that. This has
And
some
then
like no way home
and then the
dialogue.
director has that feeling about his character, so he killed him so no one else could use him. That's amazing.
I just didn't mind that.
No!
I just didn't mind that they got rid of him in this movie so that there is no sequel bait. Like, that's what I meant earlier when I said I got some closure with this, even if like I didn't love it, or if I think it should just ended with 2018 or the first movie. It's like, well, at least there's no sequel bait in this one. I appreciated that. But you're right, Austin, that original ending makes more sense with the story they were telling.
This is not the premise that you go with the like total, closure, we're done thing, unless again the point is either or both of them gets away at the end and evil does never die tonight. That was a great sentence. I'm gonna stand by
But
it.
ultimately, it doesn't really matter because Blumhouse lost the rights after this movie.
Yep.
So like, I don't know. Like, it's just gonna go off to somebody else anyways.
That's what shatters my dream about us trying the anthology standalone thing again, where we do a Halloween movie that has nothing to do with Michael Myers. Is, well, it's going back to the old rights holders, so they're just gonna reboot with Michael Myers. I know this.
I mean, I am glad that Blumhouse is losing this because Blumhouse should be like shot with a rocket launcher. But like, yeah, it is just gonna go to the next company. That's just. I'm guessing the next reboot will be Halloween 2 again, but it takes place the same night, and we do a period piece on 78. That's my guess. He moves on to the next person.
I don't think you can go back to that first movie timeline anymore. I think you need a hard reboot or remake,
just like
again.
Scrap everything.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm gonna get some flack for this. This is kind of sacrilege. As weird and not great as Rob Zombie's Halloween remake is, it's different. And if whether you like that movie or not, if another filmmaker was like, no, I want to remake Halloween and put my spin on that, I wouldn't mind it. Like, not that he has any interest, but like if Robert Eggers, like the Lighthouse guy, was like, I want to remake Halloween, I'd be like, ooh, I want to see that director's take.
And if it was Robert
Eggers,
material. Yeah. When it's Rob Zombie, I'm like,
maybe not.
I will give this movie, it is nowhere near as bad as Rob Zombie's 2. It's the first Halloween movie I like less than the remake, but it's better than 2, so I can give him that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask where you'd rank it, because this is somewhere in the middle for me.
I don't know. It's obviously that stuff changes as years go by. My bottom 4 are Kills, the remake, Ends, and 2. I like remake 2.
It's all so arbitrary to me now. I don't want to ever have to rank this franchise.
It is really hard. Because
it's basically like
so many of them are bad.
You have a great movie, which is why we can't stop making these, and then just stuff that they made, I guess. But I mean, like this, this and the last one make Halloween 2 look like Halloween to me. Like,
well, because you hit a certain point where I'm like, okay, Halloween 5 is really boring, and like I would never watch it again. The movie sucks. But like I'm also not as annoyed watching it as I am with those bottom 4 that I said. So it's like, I guess it's technically better, but also it's incredibly boring. So like, there's a reason for it to be last. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's why I said earlier that compared to other installments in this franchise, there was nothing in this movie that made me like angry
Mhm.
or annoyed. That's not me saying you guys are right or wrong. It's
No, of
I can't
course.
speak for that. I'm only speaking for myself personally. Like, well, there's nothing in this movie that annoyed me, so here's your participation trophy. Halloween
Yeah, no,
ends.
you just don't have any standards. That's all. That's fine.
Yeah, you just deserve to be shot out of a cannon.
I'm gonna read this last comment from. This is not the last thing he's mentioned, but I'm gonna read one more comment from Fidelio real quick, just because. Once again, sorry, Fidelio, I really disagree with this, and I feel the need to read it. He says, "I'm actually not as respectfully. I'm actually not as concerned with what the film is saying. I agree with Ebert that it's not what a film is saying that matters; it's how it says it. I found the way they did it interesting. So." I know the Ebert quote you're talking about, and that's within a context, right? Like when Ebert says that, I think generally speaking, he means, and of course, he's not around to defend himself, but I think generally he means like when a movie is saying a thing and you can tell what it's saying, like this is really confused and garbled, and I don't know what the point is, and so I'm really distracted, and like I've seen Ebert complain with lots of movies that he doesn't like what the point of it is, or what it's saying doesn't make sense. But I think that's more often in the context of a thing where it's not really about anything, or the point of it uh, isn't really a thematic thing, but it's just like really well made and interesting. Or maybe he disagrees with it, but there's something he can latch onto, right? And so like I don't like what this movie is saying, but I also don't know what this movie is saying exactly. But also I don't like how it's saying it either. So there you go. Like I don't really have anything to latch onto.
I was also I was just taken with the look of this movie. That's hard for me to articulate. Where
It
there's
looks
something
better than Kills.
I don't. They look different, and this one to me, like it felt very '80s, but not in the go-to place where when you set something in the '80s or you're inspired by the '80s, you bathe everything in neon. Like this movie doesn't do that. It's very simple and low key, and I don't know. I just vibed with this movie more than I did. I have issues with it. It's a lukewarm. I'm feeling it, but I didn't hate it. I had a decent time.
Well, there's a lot of things
No, for
that
sure.
if they grab me like tonally or atmospherically or whatever, and I'm enjoying just living in the world, that's where what it's saying doesn't matter as much. But I don't. So
Mhm.
so Fidelio, I get that feeling, and maybe you had that with this, but like I also didn't really care for the filmmaking. I don't know. It's just like nothing about this really worked for me ultimately. And it made it
Yeah,
worse because I think that there were some interesting notions that it should have run with consistently.
Mhm.
Um, because I actually kind of liked Corey as an idea.
mhm. I do think because you have it's almost oddly structured like the remake
Mhm.
of where like I said you have that thing where you're seeing like the nurture of how he becomes the shape, and then you get to like the last 40 minutes and it's like, okay, now we have to do like Halloween in 40 minutes where we got to like have like a rampage and killing people. But it is also just kind of awkward because you're with Michael as opposed to anybody else, and everybody that he's killing is like somebody that's beat him up throughout the movie. So I'm already like in no way like afraid of Corey because he's a loser he's like 25, he gets beat up by 16-year-olds. Um but also it just becomes scene after scene of him just going around killing everybody, and it becomes that Halloween Kills thing where it's like, I don't know, like this isn't really um like interesting to me. And then that junkyard scene is like just straight up like put our hands up like, yep, it's Christine. Like we're not even hiding it.
I couldn't believe that bit where you've got the bullies in the junkyard, and there's the one kid that is where Corey's sneaking up on him, and then you have I think it's the one of the girls, I can't remember. You have one of the other kids who doesn't yell like run away, or
She yells, "You're
look
dead."
out. She goes, "You're dead." I'm like, that's what that character would say. Of course. That's how a real person would respond to a person that they spend all their time with, running all around town all the time. "Oh, you're dead."
I don't think anyone has ever talked like a real person in a Halloween movie. Even the first one. People talk weird in that.
But it's got such a charm
But
to it.
compared
Everybody
to
makes
the-
fun. Everybody
And
makes
there's a
fun of Totally
consistency,
Girl,
there's
but
an
I
internal
love
logic
Totally
to the way
Girl.
people talk in that. Now I just feel like it's really mean-spirited. I couldn't deal with the radio DJ. Like, what's that guy's problem?
Well, yeah, Corey's entire thing is he's like, "Ooh, this radio DJ yelled at me because I was climbing around on his roof."
Yeah, somebody cut his tongue off, put it on a record, and let it spin.
I thought that shot was cool, but you could have cut out like half of the scenes of people being rude. Like, that's one of the main issues with the movie, is how repetitive it is.
Yeah.
Like, someone's rude to Corey and then he kills them, and someone's rude. It's like, if you want to sell that he's becoming the Shape, you need to have him start killing people that haven't wronged him, right?
Well, we didn't even
like, you
kill
need to have
the
him
parents.
innocent.
He killed that radio DJ that was mean to him once, but not the parents of the kid that he killed that like berated him in a bar. And
yeah, he killed his own mom.
He
That's
killed
a missed opportunity.
the mom from Christine. Just like, there's so many Stephen King characters in this movie.
Yeah,
because that's what the
and I've
bullies
still
are
never
too.
seen that movie, which I need to do. So like, the
You should,
derivative
it's
stuff
pretty
went
good.
over my head.
It's good.
But like, if this was better written, and if Corey was as interesting as he could have been, it's easier to look past that stuff in like a Joker kind of way. Like, yeah, that movie's really derivative, but it's good. It works, so I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can complain about how derivative it is, but it's still watchable. It's still,
It hits a level of quality on its own.
I'm not gonna turn my
That I
sign
don't
red because I've
hate.
seen some of that before. Like,
Yeah, no, exactly. No, the Christine
that
parallels.
might be a good movie to watch on Halloween. That's a good Halloween
Joker?
kind of movie. Yeah.
I wouldn't do that, but go for it.
No, I just mean in the season, maybe not on the day, but yeah.
Well, like that movie, I think the music in this is good. I hope John Carpenter and his son keep doing music together on other movies. They're great composers.
Absolutely. That's the only good thing in the Firestarter remake is his
Literally,
score.
the only good thing in the
score?
Firestarter remake.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
because
that movie.
he was supposed to direct the
Don't
original,
waste your time with
and then
that.
E.T. ruined the thing, so he didn't do that. But Blumhouse like hired him to do the music for that.
So
that's pretty cool.
I'm not going to read a bunch more comments right now, but just looking at some of the extra feedback I'm getting from Fidelio now, I also feel the need to mention that to just put in this caveat real quick with me that this is not my genre, and I don't tend to appreciate this brand of horror like past the original Halloween. So when I say this stuff is mean-spirited, I stand by that. I'm gonna live there, and you guys probably don't have that, and maybe don't even like understand why that's a problem for me, because you like this genre, and I generally speaking don't. There's kind of like, call me a prude or whatever, but like there's kind of a brand of intentional depravity with some of this stuff that I do not get. Where like I don't understand what the fun of it's supposed to be. I don't appreciate it, and that's why I kind of stay out of the horror discussion a lot, because a lot of this kind of stuff I don't think has any business being made. I don't know why people like it. I don't know why we're enjoying this stuff. That's just me. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, Ebert.
but I mean,
You do sound like Ebert.
but I do line up with him on that.
Cap's gonna dox.
I've always felt that way.
John Carpenter. Gonna be like, everybody go to his house and fight him.
But to be fair, like, the original Halloween is, and not that, I agree with Ebert on everything. The original Halloween is a movie that he liked a lot, and me too, because there's an artistry to it, and it is about something, and there's a reason for that to exist. Stuff like this, I don't understand. I don't know why it gets made. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, I feel like for me, and I had this mainly with Kills. This is at least trying to do stuff.
I'm
But
never reviewing this kind of thing again.
with Kills, it's like, it's too pretentious, I think, for me to be like the fun, like, oh, let's watch the slasher kill people, like a Friday the 13th, a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that's why the Nightmares I can get behind a lot more. Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't. doesn't have fun with it. So it's just kind of like unenjoyable. I don't really have the mean-spirited thing with either of these movies, but that's whatever.
It's hard to defend slasher movies without sounding like a crazy person.
Yeah.
But I do like this genre. But I do
That's
agree
a great
that there
rebuttal.
are some I don't like.
But I mean, you're not alone. Like a lot of people I know. I have a ton of friends. Look, some of my friends are horror fans. No, I have lots of friends that this is like their main genre, and I can't relate to that. I don't understand that. It is fun for me sometimes to dip my toe in it, but like, I need a shower. I need a month before I look at another one. You know.
Well, that's how I feel with torture porn movies. Like that's not
Yeah,
my
I
thing.
don't-
Like I like slasher movies, but I don't like torture porn. Like so, I don't have the mean-spirited thing
And I
that
also
you do,
think
but
there's
I do
a
have
line
that
with
level.
that. I think it depends on how. Forgive me for saying it this way, but like desensitized you are, what you grew up with, or whatever. That like, if there are people I know that if I showed them this, they would refer to it as torture porn, and it isn't that to your standards as a horror fan, but I get why people that aren't into horror would feel that way about it. Do you see what I'm saying? So like,
they'd just be
there is a
wrong.
line. Sorry, what?
People
Austin?
are allowed to be wrong. They'd just be wrong.
No, I get that. I also think Roger Ebert was way off on the Friday the 13th movies. Those movies are way more tame than he thought they were, in my
Those
opinion.
movies are way more tame than their reputation, because the ratings board like ripped those movies apart more than Jason ripped people apart. Absolutely.
But you're also coming from the perspective of a person that's grown up watching these things, and you can't know what it was like to watch at least like the early Friday the 13th in the late 70s, early 80s, when there wasn't a lot of stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, your standard would be different. You've seen so many of these.
But I've also seen movies at the time as well, and the ratings, I can't remember what they're called, because we have different ones here, but were way harder on Friday than they were on a lot of other series.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Society, like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that stomach churning. And honestly, the 70s, there's some really hard edge, brutal stuff
Even like
in
Nightmare,
there.
like Nightmare gets away with a ton of stuff that Friday couldn't even dream of.
Okay, but how did he review Nightmare? I bet he didn't like that either.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know much about Ebert. Like, it's
Okay, not to throw Ebert and Siskel under the bus, because I do like those guys. I like that show, and they've both been
yeah, and my
sadly
apologies
dead for a long
to
time.
everybody watching that we've spent this much time talking about other critics. I tend to try to stray away from that. But go ahead.
Not to criticize these guys too hard.
Yeah.
But to circle back to Army of Darkness, I will say that Siskel didn't like Army of Darkness and called Bruce Campbell stiff. And I don't know if I've disagreed with him on anything more than that. I don't know how you can have that opinion.
Well, can I be honest with you? I'm a big Roger Ebert fan. I respect the way Siskel did his job. I don't know what he's talking about like 35-40% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they both have like funny opinions. I always laugh
but
at
especially Siskel, because I feel like he kind of he would lead with his heart way too often. I think where like there's just an objectivity that he was kind of lacking, and like yes, there's an emotional component to it, but very often I felt like he just wouldn't take a movie on its own terms, where it would be, well, that's not what I want from this. So yeah, but is it accomplishing what it was after? And I think Ebert more consistently was looking for that. Especially when he would review things in genres that he did not care about. Where like you know, he gave the first Twilight movie an okay review because he knew who it was aimed at, and he's wrong even for those people. That is a terrible movie. But I kind of respect that. We're like, what's it trying to accomplish? Well, it's pulling that whatever it is we're talking about, like a lot of kids movies and stuff. But anyway, we digress.
My favorite Ebert thing is just that he hated The Thing and Hellraiser, but then said Anaconda was super creative. I just think that's really funny.
And also, if you're seeing like 10 movies a week, it's impossible to be consistent. I mean, like I can't even do it with Rewind, and that's just superhero movies. So,
yep, I saw your Guardians 2 review.
Yeah, and there's people that think I was, you know, way too positive on that because a lot of people don't like that movie. So Deal with it, sir. Anyway,
Like I said, people are wrong, so that's if you take anything away from this video, it's that most people are wrong, except for me.
People are allowed to have their opinions, even if they're wrong.
Exactly.
Anything else you guys want to make sure to mention about Halloween Ends? I said quick sign flip. Again, should never ever say that.
I laughed really hard when Corey beat up Michael because all I could hear in my head was because he yells like you're an old man, and all I could hear in my head was that Thor scene where he's like, you're an old man and a fool. And then I just wish that Michael Myers like barked at him like Anthony Hopkins does.
Yeah, since this is the last one, and I don't know if I want to say like shark jumping, but like I've gotten to a place with these last two where I don't care anymore. There's a part of me that wanted it to really jump the shark at the end, Austin, where like either Michael Myers just goes into suddenly like a soliloquy, or somebody rips all his wires out the back and we find out he was a robot. One of those two things I would have really appreciated at the end of this movie, I think.
You know what it would be is they rip out his wires and they go, oh my god, he was a Doom bot, and then Dr. Doom walks in, and then it sets up the next phase of Marvel.
This isn't even a Disney thing.
No, but everything is. Disney just bought the rights. This is the last Blumhouse movie. Disney's getting the rights next. So
Oh, I see.
Disney put out Halloween 6, so there you go.
Remember when that movie Life came out and people thought it was going to be a Venom prequel?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. I would say stranger things have happened, but that didn't happen. People were wrong. I don't understand.
It was also like a white symbiote thing, so why would that be Venom? People are dumb.
People grasp at straws, man. They want their headcanon to be canon. I don't know. Anyway.
You know what would have been way better is if you think it's Venom the entire movie, and then like the space shuttle or whatever it's on, it crashes, and then the person gets out and Nathan Drake's there, and it turns out it was actually a secret origin for Uncharted.
We find out, like, for 10 years, Sony just builds all of their properties into a shared universe, but we don't realize they're all in the same world until they've made like 10 years worth of movies, and then they just throw it all together. It's like Jumanji and like the Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man, and
they do a team up with like 10 different Tom Hollands where he's leading all these different franchises.
Yeah, the thing that holds it all together eventually is Tom Holland.
Yeah. If you collect every Tom Holland, then you can snap everyone else out of existence.
Well, we're going to get going. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. Robert, thanks for joining us, man. I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Austin and I will be back again on Friday, beginning my insane, ill-advised 24-hour stream. Going to start at 10 p.m. Central Time, watching nothing but DCAU episodes all day long. I'm going to be using a random number generator, and we're going to pick random episodes all day, and we're also going to watch episodes suggested by you folks, and Austin's going to be with me for the first leg of that. I'm going to have some other magnanimous folks I know coming in to co-host with me, and I think, Austin, I've got almost all, if not every hour covered. I think I might have somebody with me that entire stream now. That's awesome. If everything goes according to plan right now. So anyway, it'll be a good time, and feel free to come in for any of that that you want to. I'll let everybody know what episodes I'm watching, and we're gonna watch a bunch of Batman, Superman, Justice League, etc. And then tomorrow night, another Captain Logan show. We may be talking about some Netflix news because they're still doing silly things, and unless some other major news comes out tomorrow, so we'll play that by ear. But hope to see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central Time for the Captain Logan Show. And in the meantime, I was indeed Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost.
If only I could rip my shirt off and there was a Day Ghost shirt, but it would just be my flabby gut.
And we also had Robert Wild.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, and nice to see you face to face, Austin. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see you later, folks. Bye, everybody. Sorry, what was that?
I just went.
No,
Yeah,
okay.
that sound.
I didn't want to miss it. We just had like a sound. Anyway, bye.